Chapter 879 His Royal Highness likes you. 2. 879 His Royal Highness likes you. 2. Of course he didn't get enough sleep. After what happened last night, he tossed and turned in bed and didn't get any sleep. That was Jun Li Nguyen's very first time experiencing a sleepless night. Jun Li Nguyen's gaze was sharp and brooding. Feng Wu stared back at him with accusing eyes. A strange awkwardness hung in the air. You both spoke at the same time. And they stopped right away. They spoke in unison again. And were both cut off once more. The awkwardness was back. That was because both of them were recalling what happened last night. Ahem, in the end the crown prince broke the silence. His gaze never moved away the whole time. Don't you have anything to say to me? Jun Linyuan raised his chin. Feng Wu decided that she would continue acting. What should I say? What should she say? Jun Linyuan could hear blood rumbling in his ears as he glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu took a step back, prepared to flee. Jun Linyuan just looked so frightening now. The look he gave her reminded her of a jaguar staring at its prey. Pursing his lips, Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes. You want to run away from me? He grabbed Feng Wu's wrist and tightened his grip. Feng Wu gritted her teeth. That hurts. But the teenager didn't loosen his grip. Instead, his gaze only became fiercer. Feng Wu thought he was going to snap her wrist. She drew in her breath. Jun Linyuan, what on earth do you want from me? Last night at about 12:45, you were in my cabin. Jun Linyuan squeezed out those words through gritted teeth. Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu feigned a casual tone. I see. That's what you're here for. Feng Wu paused for effect. Jun Linyuan snorted. Finally, the girl was going to admit what she had done. Feng Wu said, well, if that's why you're mad, you can have my apology. It really was my fault. Jun Linyuan glanced at her arrogantly. He didn't expect this unruly girl to say sorry. Feng Wu grinned and said apologetically, I made a bet with Xianyi and lost. That was why I was in your room last night. The proud look disappeared from Jun Linyuan's face immediately, and he looked like he was going to explode. But Feng Wu didn't notice any of that. She sighed. Chaoga needed cleansing bee pills and Xianyi had them. That was why I accepted the bet. Feng Wu had no problem selling Xianyi out. Achoo! The teenager in a green robe and with a sword between his crossed arms stood ramrod straight in the wind. He sneezed all of a sudden. Feng Sun was bemused. Xian II, are you all right? Yes. Xianyi darted a look in the direction that Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan had disappeared in. I think. However, he thought wrong. He was going to be in so much trouble. Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Wu. What did you just say? What kept him awake the whole night turned out to be a bet. Someone as proud as Jun Linyuan could never accept such an explanation. His face turned livid. Seeing the grim look on his face and his stiff back, Feng Wu tried to appease him. Oh my, just think of it as a dream. You don't even like me, so it shouldn't affect you at all. Shouldn't affect him? Jun Linyuan wished that was the case. But he was affected. Chapter 880 His Royal Highness likes you. 3. 880 His Royal Highness likes you. 3. Jun Linyuan's gaze was sharper than a blade and he flushed when he said, but you kissed me. Feng Wu waved her hand in a devil-may-care manner. You know what? Just think of it as a mosquito bite or something. I don't even care that much myself, so why should it bother a guy like you? It's not like you've lost anything. Jun Linyuan was infuriated. Their lips had touched. How could she think so little of it? He was losing sleep over what happened, but she brushed it off just like that. The crown prince was so mad that he couldn't think straight. He forgot all his words. Why, you Jezebel! Feng Wu had planned to coax the guy until he calmed down, but she snapped when she heard what Jun Linyuan said. What did you just call me? Feng Wu rested her hands on her waist. Did you just shame my honor? Jun Linyuan glared at Feng Wu, his face livid. A bet? A joke? He had just been made fun of. He promptly turned to leave. Jun Linyuan. Stop right there. I need an explanation. Who gave you the right to call me that? Feng Wu yelled after Jun Linyuan, but the guy had disappeared into the distance. She stomped her foot in frustration. It was only supposed to be a joke. She lost the bet and she had to honor her word. That was why she kissed him. What did shame have anything to do with it? What a bummer. Meanwhile, the crown prince. He looked like he was surrounded by the coldest air. Wherever he went, everything in his way froze instantly. When he walked past Xianyi and Feng Sun was flustered. Where's my sister? Boss Jun, where's my sister? Feng Sun looked behind Jun Linyuan, but didn't find Feng Wu anywhere. He panicked. Jun Linyuan had a murderous look in his eyes. And he was staring at Xianyi. Xianyi's heart sank. No. Feng Wu had sold him out. I'll go check up on my sister. However, Feng Sun didn't get a chance to finish his sentence. Jun Linyuan's cold voice cut him off. Come with me. Both of you. Feng Sun and Xianyi exchanged looks, one bewildered and the other conflicted. Feng Sun had no idea what was going on, but Xianyi had an inkling. He rubbed his nose with a wry smile. Judging by Boss Jun's mood, he had failed at this task again. Xianyi couldn't for the life of him figure out what was going on. It was so obvious that Boss Jun was in love with the girl, and he had thought that the cat would be out of the bag with just a little push. But I think they'll need a lot more than a push. Xianyi smiled bitterly. Who needs what? Feng Sun was at a loss. Xianyi said, forget about who or what. My problem now is that nature's calling. Feng Sun waved him off. I'll go find Boss Jun first. Sure. Poor Feng Sun. He went to Jun Linyuan without a clue about anything. Seeing Feng Sun arrive on his own, Jun Linyuan frowned and his face grew darker. Feng Sun asked, Boss Jun, what do you need us for? A duel. Oh. Feng Sun almost choked. Last time when Boss Jun said those words, Feng Sun ended up bedridden for nearly a month. So when he heard those words again, Feng Sun's first reaction was to flee. However, the crown prince would never let his punching bag escape. Chapter 881 His Royal Highness Likes You. 881 His Royal Highness Likes You. 4. Jun Linyuan grabbed Feng Sun by the back of his collar. Xianyi, who had been hiding behind a pile of snow, lost all courage and decided not to show his face after all. Feng Sun cried out, Boss Jun, I don't want to fight you. I admit defeat. I give up. No, you're not. This isn't a duel, but a one-sided thrashing. Please let me go. I don't want to be your punching bag. Fight me then. Jun Linyuan smirked. He had to vent his rage and anyone could be the target. Not to mention that Feng Sun was little Feng Wu's brother. Shortly afterward, everyone heard Feng Sun screaming in the distance. Feng Wu rushed to his rescue. Seeing how Jun Linyuan was treating Feng Sun, Feng Wu lost her temper. She stood between the two guys and faced Jun Linyuan with her arms spread out. Jun Linyuan's hand was smashing down in Feng Wu's direction. Ah! Everyone cried out in fear. Feng Wu's head would be split open if that fist landed on her head. Did His Royal Highness hate Feng Wu that much? Feng Wu was actually a nice person. Feng Wu closed her eyes in fear. The wind grazed against her cheek like a sharp razor. For a moment there, Feng Wu thought she was going to die. The fist was only a few centimeters from Feng Wu's face now. Holy shit! Many covered their eyes. They couldn't bring themselves to watch this anymore. It was too frightening. However, Jun Linyuan's fist missed Feng Wu's head by a millimeter at the last moment. SSSS. Feng Wu drew in her breath. She had really thought she was going to die. Jun Linyuan paused and stared at Feng Wu with a brooding and fierce look in his eyes. He wouldn't be challenged like this. The air felt very heavy. Many were worried about Feng Wu. Someone said quietly, actually, Feng Wu is a really nice person. Once that was out, everyone began to gingerly speak their minds. Your Royal Highness, Feng Wu's really kind. She taught us to hide in the snow caves. And she told us to keep warm with heated stones. Your Royal Highness, please forgive Feng Wu, someone called out. At those words, many dropped to their knees and called out, Your Royal Highness, please forgive Feng Wu. Jun Linyuan was speechless. He was so mad that he wanted to throttle the girl, but of course he couldn't bring himself to do it. However, he didn't expect her to be so popular. Throwing a dirty look at Feng Wu, the crown prince stormed off. Shi Xian and the others were baffled. They did it. Feng Wu, Feng Wu. Everyone rushed to Feng Wu and gathered around her in bewilderment. What did you do? Why is His Royal Highness so mad? That's an understatement. He was going to kill Xiao Wu. Well, all is fine now. Xiao Wu, I'd stay out of His Royal Highness's way if I were you. You might get killed for no reason. All right? Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Well, Feng Wu, what was that all about? Feng Wu scratched her head. She couldn't tell them that she had snuck into Jun Linyuan's bedroom in the middle of the night, even if she had only been fulfilling her promise. I have no idea. Feng Wu rubbed her head and put on an innocent look. Recalling how unpredictable the crown prince was, everyone sighed in resignation. The guy was a mystery. Poor little Feng Wu. Chapter 882 His Royal Highness likes you. 882 His Royal Highness likes you. 5. Come over here. Feng Sun led Feng Wu to the back of the pile of snow. Xianyi tried to sneak off, but Feng Sun dragged him back. The three of them were the only ones left in the clearing. Because of the chilly wind, all three crouched down and formed a circle. Feng Sun asked Feng Wu right away, I didn't want to ask you in front of all those people, but we're alone now. My dear sister, what did you say to Boss Jun just then? Feng Wu looked the most innocent. Nothing. Feng Sun snorted. If that's the case, why was Boss Jun so pissed? Feng Wu said. He's always pissed. Feng Sun rubbed his nose. She was right. But he was especially pissed this time. He even forced me into a duel. Feng Sun had yet to recover from the shock. Patting his chest, he said, Boss Jun did it once before. He dragged me into a duel last time for no reason too. Feng Wu frowned. My dear brother, I wouldn't call ass-kicking a duel. Feng Sun was almost in tears. Can you at least try to be tactful about it? Although you do have a point. Boss Jun never fights or duels, he only beats people up or kills them. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. I told him no, but you know what he told me? I was going to be his partner in training. Feng Sun sounded frustrated. You have to be an equal match to be a partner in training. Do you think that's what I am? An equal match? Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Not really. You don't say. Feng Sun stomped his foot. A partner in training for him is as good as a punching bag. Feng Wu and Xianyi nodded in unison. Feng Sun darted an aggrieved glance at Xianyi. Xian the second, why are you always so lucky? Xianyi was confused. Huh. Feng Sun said, you just happened to hear the call of nature at that moment? We could at least have shared the beating if you were with me. Xianyi rubbed his nose. Well. Feng Wu and Xianyi exchanged looks. They reached an agreement right away. No one was to talk about that bet. Feng Wu looked at Feng Sun sympathetically. Feng the third, it must have been so hard keeping yourself alive when growing up with Jun Linyuan. It wasn't always like this. Boss Jun is really angry this time. Feng Sun shook his head. He's really that pissed. Yes. Isn't he always angry? He's not. His mind was wandering off just this morning. And not only was he absent-minded, he was even smiling a little. He was in a good mood, Feng Sun said with a long face. He was so confused. Xianyi gave Feng Sun a thumbs up in his head. He then checked the look on Feng Wu's face. A girl as bright as little Feng Wu had to be able to see through His Royal Highness's abnormal behavior right away. However, to Xianyi's disappointment, Feng Wu frowned. That's strange. If that's the case, he wasn't angry this morning. Feng Sun nodded. But wasn't he all furious when he came to me just then? That's right. Why was that? Exchanging looks, Feng Sun and Feng Wu said in unison, he finds you annoying. What a frustrating discovery. Both Feng Wu and Feng Sun lowered their heads, looking defeated. No, it wasn't like that. Next to them, Xianyi was exasperated. Why were these two smart people behaving like a pair of idiots now? They were on the wrong track. Chapter 883 His Royal Highness likes you. 883 His Royal Highness likes you. 6. Xianyi tried to lead them in the right direction. Do you think there's another possibility? What is that? Feng Wu and Feng Sun turned their heads in unison and stared at Xianyi. Is it possible that Boss Jun actually likes little Feng Wu? Ha 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 ha. Feng Wu and Feng Sun guffawed, and both gave Xianyi you idiot looks. Xianyi rubbed his forehead. He had thought that Boss Jun was the only one that wouldn't admit his true feelings, but as it turned out, Feng Wu was no better. Boss Jun was doomed to have a very bumpy journey in his quest to court his beloved girl. Xianyi, are you even listening to yourself? Can you tell the difference between liking a person and not? Feng Sun was baffled. Has Boss Jun ever shown Feng Wu any kindness from the moment they met for the first time? He's either frowning or pissed off. When he doesn't storm off, he tries to beat her up. And you call that liking her? Xianyi was rendered speechless. He wanted to help Boss Jun out, he really did. But there was nothing he could do. Well, where were we? Feng Sun ignored Xianyi and went back to Feng Wu. Your Boss Jun is very angry. Yes, he is. He's exceptionally angry this time. He wasn't like this before. He used to be so graceful, aloof, and majestic. He never showed his emotions. A volcano could erupt right in front of him and he wouldn't even blink. But how many times has he lost control so far? Rubbing his chin, Feng Sun was all the more confused. Since when did all this start? When? Feng Wu frowned. All of a sudden, Feng Sun raised his head and stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu flinched. What? That look gave her the creeps. Feng Sun grabbed Feng Wu's arm. It all started at the northern border. More precisely, it all started after he met you. Xianyi wanted to applaud Feng Sun. He decided that he would keep his silence, for whenever he spoke, Feng Sun would misunderstand him and lead the conversation in the wrong direction. Feng Wu frowned. Are you saying that I'm the reason that he's mad? Feng Sun nodded. Yup. I made him lose control. Feng Sun nodded. Yup. Does he hate me that much? Seriously. Feng Sun nodded. Yup. Defeated, Feng Wu lowered her head. She looked crestfallen. I don't even know what I did wrong. Why does he hate me so much? It's like I should never have been born. Feng Sun rubbed her head. Don't be upset. I'll always be on your side. Even if Boss Jun doesn't like you, I'll protect you. Xianyi's mouth fell open. He couldn't do this anymore. These two people would give him a heart attack if he stayed here any longer. Rising to his feet, he shook his head and left in disappointment. Watching Xianyi leave, Feng Wu and Feng Sun moved closer. Feng Wu said, Is Xianyi upset? Feng Sun didn't think much of it. He's never cheerful. Recalling Xianyi's poker face, Feng Wu nodded, agreeing with Feng Sun. Chapter 884 His Royal Highness Likes You. 884 His Royal Highness Likes You. 7. Poor Xianyi. He hardly ever poked his nose into other people's business, but the people concerned kept misunderstanding each other. To say that he was mentally fatigued would be an understatement. However, at that moment, rumble. There was an ear-splitting rumbling sound. Feng Wu and Feng Sun exchanged looks and saw fear on each other's faces. Shit. Their worst fear had just come true. The next thing they knew, a thundering noise made the ground tremble. And it was followed by the blast from a sound wave. Even Feng Wu and Feng Sun almost lost their footing, not to mention the others. The impact of such an explosive sound on a snowfield. Involuntarily, Feng Wu looked up at the mountains in the distance. As expected, large quantities of snow were tumbling down the slope like a landslide. From a distance, the rush of snow reminded one of a tidal wave. Shit! It's an avalanche! Feng Wu and Feng Sun cried out in unison. Both blanched. The snow rushed in their direction with a tremendous force. It was beyond control. Run! Feng Wu and Feng Sun cried out and both turned to run as fast as they could. By then, the others in the campsite had also noticed what was going on. Run! Everybody run! You'll die if you're buried in the snow. Feng Sun shouted at the top of his voice. He was never the responsible type, but their duty here was to keep these candidates safe. Everybody run! Quickly! Feng Sun looked nervously at the avalanche a short distance away as he gave instructions to the candidates. He had only turned his head for a minute or so, but by the time he realized it, Feng Wu was nowhere to be found. Feng Wu? Where's Feng Wu? Feng Sun panicked. Xianyi was flustered when he heard Feng Sun shout her name. What did you say? What happened to little Feng Wu? Where is she? Feng Sun was exasperated. I have no idea. She was just here. I looked away for a second and she disappeared. She has no spiritual essence whatsoever. She'll be killed if she gets buried. Xianyi said, well, the snow is the last thing I'm worried about now. That frosty night beast will gladly have her for a snack. Feng Sun was speechless. Xianyi was as exasperated as he was. Everyone else didn't know about Jun Lingyuan's feelings, but Xianyi did. If anything happened to Feng Wu, there would be nothing left of this entire proud snowfield. Feng Sun and Xianyi looked everywhere, but Feng Wu was nowhere to be found. Where had that girl gone? All the candidates had rushed out of hiding and were headed east. Feng Wu. Little Feng Wu. Feng Wu. The avalanche was almost upon them, but Feng Sun and Xianyi were still in the campsite. Many candidates were worried sick. Just then, a figure landed in front of Feng Sun and Xianyi. He was obviously irritated. What are you still doing here? Can't you see the avalanche? Get out of here. The Crown Prince snapped. Feng Sun couldn't care less if the Crown Prince hated Feng Wu or not. He said in a hurry, Boss Jun, help. I can't find little Feng Wu anywhere. What should I do? Little Feng Wu. She was missing. They were surrounded by rolling snow and a hubbub of noise, but all Jun Linyuan could hear was, little Feng Wu was missing. Boss Jun, is little Feng Wu going to die? Sob, she's my only sister. Chapter 885 Confrontation 1. 885 Confrontation 1. Before Feng Sun could utter another word, Jun Linyuan had grabbed him by the throat. His grip was so tight that blue veins popped on the back of his hand. His eyes were bloodshot red, so much so that he might be weeping blood. His bellow was louder than the howling wind. Where did you last see her? I can't remember. She was just there. Jun Linyuan followed Feng Sun's gaze and something fierce flickered in his eyes. The next second, whoosh, Jun Linyuan jabbed the tip of his sword into the ground. Thump! Blood spurted out, splashing all over Feng Sun's face. Feng Sun was speechless. Before he realized it, Jun Linyuan had disappeared from sight. Back in the imperial capital, in the imperial palace, the Empress Dowager was throwing a tantrum when Master Bai came into the hall. Your Majesty, Zhuo Ming, the head of the Zhuo clan, begs for an audience. Emperor Wu frowned a little. The generation in charge of the Zhuo clan consisted of 2 male descendants. The elder one was Zhuo He, who had died at Feng Wu's hands. Zhuo Ming, the younger of the brothers, was the more accomplished one. Hence, he was the head of the clan. Why had he come here now? Bring him in. Zhuo Ming walked into the hall to find that Emperor Wu wasn't the only one there. The Empress Dowager and Grand Secretary Feng were both looking at him. Zhuo Ming's eyes met Empress Dugu's briefly, and both looked away almost immediately. They were cousins. However, most people didn't know that they used to live in the same house when they were little, and had been very close ever since. Your Majesty. Emperor Wu nodded and gestured at him to stand up. Zhuo, you look shaken. What happened? Zhuo Ming said, Your Majesty, something's wrong with Proud Snowfield. Emperor Wu glanced at him. I've been told. Zhuo Ming bowed again. Your Majesty, Imperial College has lost contact with those in the snowfield. Emperor Wu nodded again. Zhuo Ming darted a look at Grand Secretary Feng. I wonder if Grand Secretary Feng has any suggestions on how to re-establish communication. Grand Secretary Feng frowned. He now knew why Zhuo Ming had come here in person. He was that man's real target. Grand Secretary Feng said quietly, Not yet. Zhuo Ming smiled a little. Your Majesty, I have an idea. Really? Emperor Wu looked at Zhuo Ming. The Empress Dowager was elated. She was worried sick about Jun Linyuan's safety, and she wanted more than anything to see her grandson. However, women weren't supposed to be involved in politics and she couldn't say anything. She only stared at Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu showed no emotion on his face, and only said in an indifferent tone, "Zua, do you have any suggestions?" Zuoming said, "Your Majesty, I made some progress in my teleportation skills a few days ago, and I think I can be of help." Emperor Wu's eyes lit up. Zuoming was an impressive cultivator to begin with. Now that he had made some progress, his teleportation skills could be very helpful. Zuoming said proudly, "Only a handful of people in the Zhenwu Empire are more advanced than I am in teleportation skills, but I'm the only one here in court. Therefore, Your Majesty, I promise I'll do my best if given the authority." Zuoming knelt down and prostrated on the ground as he paid the highest respect by kowtowing. Emperor Wu narrowed his eyes. He looked from a pile of memorials on his desk to the aggressive Zuoming on the floor. So, a lot of people wanted Grand Secretary Fang to lose his job. If Zuoming let out this piece of information, the families of the candidates would lose control. Grand Secretary Fang only smiled. Chapter 886 He and She. Chapter 886 He and She. Your Majesty, if Mr. Zhou can re-establish communications, we should consider granting him the level of authority he needs. Emperor Wu rolled his eyes at Grand Secretary Fang. Easy for you to say. Once that was granted, it would be impossible to take away. Moreover, even if he could, Grand Secretary Fang's authority as the acting principal would be undermined, and Zuoming would gain popularity. Who should be named principal of Imperial College then? Grand Secretary Fang smiled. I see that Mr. Zhou is very confident. A crooked smile appeared on Zuoming's face, giving him a cunning look. Naturally. Grand Secretary Fang asked, what if you can't restore communications? Zuoming retorted, do you have any idea how many parents are eager for news from inside? Or how many candidates' lives are in danger? They may have a chance to be rescued now, but Mr. Fang, you're depriving them of that chance for some personal reason. Mr. Fang, can you take full responsibility for the consequences? Zuoming was indeed as imposing as the father of Zhou Qingluan should be. He targeted Grand Secretary Fang, and his tone was relentless. Grand Secretary Fang frowned a little. He had an inkling that Zhou He, the previous acting principal, had been killed by Feng Wu. He even had a hunch that the Zhou family had something to do with the loss of Feng Wu's cultivation ability back then. Hence, there was a grim look on Grand Secretary Fang's face when he looked at Zuoming again. Was the man here just for the position of principal? Or did he want something else? Grand Secretary Fang narrowed his eyes. Meanwhile, in proud Snowfield, Feng Wu was woken up by the bitterly cold air. She realized that she was lying on the ground, and the blazing sun above stung her eyes. She could hear the sounds of fighting. Turning her head, Feng Wu saw a snowy white magical beast with the head of a dragon and the body of a lion. The frosty night beast. Hadn't Jun Linyuan killed it already? She had even swallowed its internal elixir. This wasn't right. It then occurred to Feng Wu that the frosty night beast could have several shadow forms. What Jun Linyuan killed was one of the shadows, not the actual beast itself. Thump! Feng Wu saw Jun Linyuan and the beast fighting fiercely in midair. Jun Linyuan's blade glinted. Both were attacking to kill. Feng Wu wanted to sit up, but grimaced when she felt a sting in her chest. Looking down, she saw that the front of her clothes was smeared with blood, which looked rather frightening. It hurt a lot. Feng Wu drew in a breath. She had a feeling that the bleeding had stopped, but her movement had torn open the wound, and the blood oozed out again. It hurt. Feng Wu felt dizzy and almost fainted. Her vision went dark. All of a sudden, she noticed a shadow moving her way, blocking out the sun. Looking up, Feng Wu realized in astonishment that the frosty night beast was charging at her at a tremendous speed. Its claws were sharper than any blade. Feng Wu knew what happened right away. The wound on her chest were from the claws of that frosty night beast. No wonder there was more than one cut. That beast simply moved too fast. Feng Wu didn't have time to react. But even if she did, she couldn't escape either, for her movements were hampered by her injury. The claws were less than 50 centimeters from Feng Wu. Whoosh! A sword came out of nowhere and hacked down at the beast's claws. Crack! Chapter 887 What Happens in the Snowfield? 1. Chapter 887 What Happens in the Snowfield? 1. 3 claws were chopped off at the base, and 3 streams of blood spurted out. The blood caught Fengwu right in the face and she was stunned. The frosty night beast darted a malicious glance at Fengwu. It could sense its internal elixir on the girl. After another brooding look, the beast turned around and fled. The sword also spun in midair before it flew back to Jun Linyuan's hand. Only then was Fengwu able to breathe again. She had been holding her breath since the beast showed up. The pressure had been suffocating. Looking around, Fengwu saw that she and Jun Linyuan were the only people here, for as far as the eye could see. The crown prince put down his sword and marched toward her. His black hair and long robe flapped in the wind, and he looked every bit what an extraordinary swordsman should look like. For some unknown reason, Fengwu couldn't look away from him. Are we the only ones here? Where are the other people? I can't see any of them here. As soon as Fengwu opened her mouth, Jun Linyuan crouched down and glared at her. Fengwu was bewildered. You! Jun Linyuan lashed out at her. Are you an idiot? Why didn't you hide from that beast? Fengwu was at a loss. How was I supposed to know it was coming? It snatched me before I realized it. I'm as baffled as you are. Face dark, Jun Linyuan rose to his feet and turned to leave. Fengwu was exasperated. As far as she could see, the two of them were the only people here. And that frosty night beast was lurking somewhere. She would have no chance if he left without her. Fengwu cherished her life. The next moment, she reached out and grabbed Jun Linyuan's sleeve. The crown prince glared at Fengwu over his shoulder. Fengwu smiled obsequiously. This is so unexpected, but I'm sure there's a reason fate brought us together here, right? Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes at Fengwu. Fate had nothing to do with any of this. He had been keeping an eye on her, and came here to find her as soon as he realized something was wrong. Otherwise, even he wouldn't have been able to catch up with that frosty night beast. She had been that close to getting killed. At that thought, Jun Linyuan looked even grimmer and threw another dirty look at Fengwu. Fengwu bit her lower lip. What should she do now? Jun Linyuan looked really mad, although he always looked mad. Tugging at Jun Linyuan's wide sleeve, Fengwu swayed his hand back and forth and pleaded in a soft voice, Your Royal Highness, aren't you here to protect the candidates? Well, I'm one of them, aren't I? So you won't leave me behind, will you? Frowning at Fengwu, Jun Linyuan said through gritted teeth, Let go. Fengwu shook her head repeatedly. If Jun Linyuan left now, that beast would come after her right away and rip her open for its internal elixir. New. Biting her lower lip, Fengwu looked at the crown prince from under her long eyelashes. She looked like she was going to cry. Please, please don't leave me here, sob. Forget dignity. Or self-respect. Those could all wait when her life wasn't hanging in the balance. Fengwu kept darting pleading looks at Jun Linyuan. The crown prince sighed inwardly in resignation, but when he spoke, he sounded as impatient as ever. Do you want your wounds treated or not? Chapter 888 What Happens in the Snowfield? 2. Chapter 888 What Happens in the Snowfield? 2. Huh? Right. Fengwu's face lit up. Face dark, Jun Linyuan crouched down in front of Fengwu. He reached out toward Fengwu's heart with his slender fingers. Fengwu reacted instinctively. Covering her chest with both hands, she stared at Jun Linyuan alarmed. Excuse me. The look on his face was indifferent. You don't want to be treated, then? I can do it myself. Jun Linyuan snorted. The beast's claws pierced all the way through from your shoulder blade. Are you going to treat that all by yourself? Fengwu hesitated. But, darting an arrogant glance at Fengwu's chest, Jun Linyuan rose to his feet. Are you leaving? Fengwu's stomach lurched. The guy kept silent. Fengwu sighed inwardly. It seemed that Jun Linyuan had lost his patience. He had every right to. Right now she was a burden, and one that wouldn't leave him alone. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated Fengwu became. Jun Linyuan looked over his shoulder to find the girl puffing out her cheeks. She seemed dispirited. No man could stay unmoved when he was around such a girl. The crown prince gave in. He crouched down in front of her again. Only this time. Whoosh! Feng Wu's shirt was torn open at the shoulder. Ah! Feng Wu cried out in surprise, scrambled back until she was sitting against a snow wall, and stared at Jun Linyuan in fright. The look on Jun Linyuan's stunning face was very serious and his gaze was intense. Fury filled his eyes when he saw the mangled wounds on her back. It looked like his eyes were spitting fire. Her skin was fairer than the first snow. Looking into Jun Linyuan's bright eyes, Feng Wu saw a mix of emotions in them. There was rage, sympathy, passion, enthusiasm, and many more that she couldn't comprehend. Close your eyes. Jun Linyuan took a cape out of nowhere and tossed it over Feng Wu's head. It was big enough to cover an entire person. Feng Wu was freezing, so this was a timely gift. Jun Linyuan was in fact a very decent man. He only tore open her shirt enough to reveal her wounds. So, Feng Wu quickly calmed down after the initial panic. Jun Linyuan, on the other hand, was covered in sweat. Is it that warm? Feng Wu looked at him in bewilderment. They were so close that Feng Wu could count the beads of sweat on his smooth forehead. Jun Linyuan still had that grim look on his face and he didn't want to talk to her. Feng Wu could even sense his hot breath on her skin. Your breath is so hot. Have you caught a cold? Feng Wu was concerned and she felt Jun Linyuan's forehead for his temperature. Her cold fingers touched his hot skin. Both shuddered involuntarily. The crown prince ground his teeth. Didn't the girl know how arousing this was? Don't touch me. Jun Linyuan raised his voice, his tone aloof and emotionless. Feng Wu pursed her lips. She was only trying to be kind, but he only yelled at her in return. How frustrating. Come to think of it, it was only natural for Jun Linyuan to hate her touch, for he had always found her repulsive, but she had only done it out of habit as a physician. Chapter 889 What Happens in the Snowfield? 3. Chapter 889 What Happens in the Snowfield? 3. Darting another look at Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu drew back her hand. She ground her teeth and gave Jun Linyuan an aggrieved look. Jun Linyuan also regretted scolding her, but he was too proud to apologize. He only went on treating Feng Wu's wound with a poker face. For a moment it was very quiet and awkward. Thank you for saving me. Feng Wu broke the silence. Jun Linyuan darted a look at Feng Wu, but didn't say anything. Can you tell me how the others are doing? Are they alive? Are they in a safe place? And you, Minji? The crown prince had softened a little, but his gaze sharpened again at the mention of that name. He looked ferocious. Feng Wu flinched. Stealing a glance at Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu murmured. And there you were, saying you've never considered him an equal match. Then don't flare up whenever his name is mentioned. It's like he killed your dad or something. The crown prince's face was even grimmer. Feng Wu gave in. Fine, I won't mention his name. She rubbed her nose. Since Jun Linyuan was obviously annoyed, she decided she wouldn't ask and be rebuffed again. The awkwardness set in once more. Jun Linyuan rose to his feet all of a sudden and Feng Wu looked up as well. Are you trying to freeze to death? No, Feng Wu shook her head immediately. There you go. The crown prince didn't look at her when he began to cast a spell with his nimble fingers. Soon, Feng Wu had been sitting against a snow wall. With Jun Linyuan's movements, 3 more walls rose up and converged above their heads to form a dome. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The guy had just built a solid snow house in under a minute? That was spectacular. Feng Wu stared at the house in amazement. She was still savoring the sculpture-like roof when Jun Linyuan turned to leave. Where are you going? Feng Wu cried out. He had bandaged her up and built her a house. Did he think he had done enough and was going to leave her here? If this were any other day, Feng Wu would happily see the man off. However, that frosty night beast was lurking somewhere. It would be able to turn Feng Wu into a pancake with a single strike. She didn't want to die. I'm going hunting. He left after those words and was soon out of sight. Well, he should be back soon, right? Feng Wu wrapped the luxurious cape tightly around herself, leaving only her head poking out. Her eyes darted around cautiously. The cape smelt like June Linyuan. It was cool, refreshing, and unique. To her surprise, she liked the scent. With the cape around her, Feng Wu felt very safe. That was strange. Feng Wu frowned. She thought she didn't like June Linyuan. Why didn't she find his smell repulsive? Feng Wu's eyes darted around. Wait, why was there blood on that wall? She had been in the same place the whole time. There was no way her blood could have been smeared there. And the two of them were the only people here. Shit! Feng Wu smacked her forehead. June Linyuan's black robe had concealed his blood. It was his blood that had been transferred onto the white wall. He was injured. And why did that blood have a hint of green to it? Grinding her teeth at the pain from her wound, Feng Wu inched in that direction. She scraped a little blood off the wall and sniffed it. That smell. Feng Wu had a bad feeling. Chapter 890 What Happens in the Snowfield? 4. Chapter 890 What Happens in the Snowfield? 4. Are you trying to kill yourself? Tossing a dead deer on the ground, June Linyuan crouched down and wiped the blood off the wall. Feng Wu looked up June Linyuan and she sounded concerned when she asked, Are you injured? June Linyuan snorted. Like that's news to you. I fight, I get injured. Feng Wu said, but according to Feng Suan, you never fight. You only beat people up. June Linyuan rolled his eyes. Heh? Feng Wu asked in an earnest tone. Do you feel unwell? Crouching down, June Linyuan looked into her eyes. She couldn't decipher the look on his face. Is this your way of showing your concern for me? Concern? Feng Wu didn't think she was concerned for him. I'm already injured and you're all that I can count on. I'll be helpless if you're down, Feng Wu said honestly. Then to Feng Wu's surprise, June Linyuan's face turned livid. His eyes seemed to spit fire which could burn her to ash. Involuntarily, Feng Wu flinched and inched back. Taking a deep breath, June Linyuan turned away and kicked the dead deer, which had already been drained of blood. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. She watched June Linyuan in resignation. Why was this man so moody and unpredictable? He was so hard to please. However, the last thing Feng Wu wanted to do now was upset June Linyuan. Getting to her feet on her own, Feng Wu said, Leave the deer alone. I'll take care of it. I'm starving. But June Linyuan ignored her. He lit a fire, cut up the deer, and concentrated on grilling the meat. He absorbed himself in the work with a livid face and tense muscles. The air he gave off was colder than the wind. Why did Feng Wu get the feeling that he was doing this out of spite? Like when a kid was mad and wouldn't talk about it. Was she overthinking it? June Linyuan? Feng Wu tentatively called his name. June Linyuan turned his back on her. Supporting herself on the wall, Feng Wu moved to his side. Your Royal Highness. June Linyuan turned in the other direction, still facing away from her. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. So he was really mad, like in a childish way? Seriously. Hey June Linyuan, are you mad at me? Feng Wu tugged at June Linyuan and said in a pleading voice. Instinctively, June Linyuan wanted to throw off her hand, but he stiffened when he recalled her wounds and her pale face. We're all alone here. It'll be so boring if you won't even talk to me, right? Feng Wu sat down next to June Linyuan. She stared at the fire for a moment before beaming at June Linyuan. Right. June Linyuan snorted and went back to grilling the meat. June Linyuan, let's talk. Shall we? Feng Wu sounded weak because of her injury, and her tiny voice made June Linyuan feel sorry for her. However, June Linyuan only threw a dirty look at her and kept his silence. I know you're angry, Feng Wu said in an innocent voice as she stared at the handsome teenager, whose face glowed in the heat. But I just don't get it. Why are you angry and what are you angry at? Can you please tell me? I'll try my best not to do it again. Okay. The girl looked so adorable when she spoke in a soft voice like this. June Linyuan felt as if someone was stroking his chest with a brush, and he almost gave in. But, on second thought, the Crown Prince realized a much more serious issue. She was able to affect his emotions. Chapter 891 What Happens in the Snowfield? Chapter 891 What Happens in the Snowfield? 5. She could easily make him angry. Or happy. Or moody. Jun Linyuan's heart skipped a bit and he bolted upright. Ah! Feng Wu had been sitting next to him and the momentum threw her off balance. She fell to the side. But Jun Linyuan caught her in time. That hurts. Despite his quick reaction, Feng Wu still tilted over and stretched her wound. Ouch! Feng Wu drew in her breath and tears welled up in her eyes. That hurt. Please don't tell her that she had ripped her wound open again. Feng Wu unwrapped the cape to check her shoulder blade. Good, there's no blood. The wound's fine. Feng Wu let out a breath of relief. Seeing Feng Wu bare her shoulder without hesitation, Jun Linyuan frowned. Do you ever feel shy? He stared at Feng Wu with conflicted feelings. Her clothes had been torn and her shoulder was uncovered. No other girl would check her wound like that in front of a man. But the girl did it as easily as breathing. Feng Wu looked very innocent when she turned to Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. It's just my shoulder. Just think of it as a sleeveless top. Never mind. It's no big deal. No big deal. Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. What's wrong now? Feng Wu's heart sank. He had been happier a moment ago, but that grim look was back on his face. She felt like crying. She had never met a man more difficult to please than the crown prince here. His mood was so erratic that she never knew what he was thinking. As a young woman, you should have scruples. Do you hear me? Jun Linyuan glared at Feng Wu. The thought of her behaving this way in front of other men made the teenager want to throttle her. Feng Wu was utterly baffled. What did scruples have anything to do with this? Luckily, Jun Linyuan hadn't used the term shameless, otherwise Feng Wu would be the one flaring up. Do you hear me? Clutching Feng Wu's wrist, Jun Linyuan stressed each word. His tone was too serious to be joking. Feng Wu was dependent on him for the moment and she had to succumb to his lecture. Yeah, I hear you. She was hardly ever this obedient that Jun Linyuan was baffled for a moment. Jun Linyuan, I'm starving. Seeing that the crown prince had softened a little, Feng Wu took the opportunity. She tugged at Jun Linyuan's sleeve and pouted. And that soft voice. Fine, Jun Linyuan said impatiently. However, his moves were so gentle when he helped her sit down, as if he was handling a piece of fragile treasure. Watching Jun Linyuan turn the meat over the fire with his slender fingers, Feng Wu was about to say something when Jun Linyuan began to take small bottles out of his sleeves. They contained condiments like salt and seasoning powder. He didn't even try to hide them. Can they all fit in your sleeves? Moreover, the guy was a neat freak. How could he stand filling his sleeves with those things? They're in my infinity storage bag. Jun Linyuan grunted. Feng Wu was taken aback. Shouldn't you keep that a secret from me? Chapter 892 What Happens in the Snowfield? Chapter 892. What happens in the snowfield? 6. What secret? Your storage bag. If other people find out about such a treasure. So what if they know? Jun Linyuan was bewildered. They may try to. Forget it. Feng Wu finally remembered who she was talking to. What sort of question was that? It was Jun Linyuan she was talking about here. Those who tried to rob him would have to have a death wish. An idea struck her when she looked at the storage bag. She couldn't use her ring space as freely as she wanted, for it was too precious. But if she could find an infinity storage bag like this, she could use it as a cover for her ring space. Feng Wu's face lit up. Is this kind of storage bag very hard to come by? Darting a look at Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan ignored her question. Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Fine. That was a silly question. If I want to have one of my own, what's the easiest way to get one? Feng Wu chose her words more carefully this time. Jun Linyuan said, dreaming. Feng Wu snapped. Jun Linyuan, what's that supposed to mean? Jun Linyuan said matter-of-factly, you heard me. That set Feng Wu off. You. She grunted, turned the other way and crossed her arms. I'm not talking to you. Jun Linyuan then handed her some stewed venison. She had no idea how Jun Linyuan did it, but the grilled meat smelled amazing. The aroma made her mouth water. I'm not eating it. Still crossing her arms, Feng Wu raised her chin. The next second, the meat disappeared from her sight. Feng Wu turned around to see that all that was left of the meat was the skewer. Jun Linyuan, you. He wouldn't even try to coax her. He then handed her a second skewer with meat on it. Feng Wu thought about assuming heirs, but she realized that not only wouldn't Jun Linyuan try to persuade her, he would also eat the meat himself. Hence, she forgot about her little pride and took the skewer. One bite and Feng Wu's eyes widened. It was so delicious. The taste was mellow and well-rounded. The meat had the perfect tenderness and it was so juicy that it melted on the tongue. It was superb. Of all the grilled meat she had tasted, this was the first time that Feng Wu wanted to shed tears of joy. Feng Wu barely chewed the meat before swallowing it, then eyed Jun Linyuan eagerly. The crown prince worked on one skewer at a time, instead of grilling a handful altogether, which was the common practice. However, he was quite efficient and could grill one skewer per minute. As Feng Wu watched, she began to see how Jun Linyuan was able to do it. No wonder it tasted so good. Jun Linyuan had been grilling the meat with his own abnormal flame, which he had learned to control perfectly. He was able to split the flame into tiny streaks and cook the meat from within so that the fat melted. That was why it was so juicy. No one but Jun Linyuan could grill like this. Feng Wu stared at the skewer in Jun Linyuan's hand so hard that her eyes popped. However, before she could react, the crown prince had eaten the whole thing. Ah, my meat! Feng Wu felt like crying when she saw the bare skewer. Tugging at Jun Linyuan's arm, she cried out, "My meat! My meat! My meat!" Was that just meat? No, it wasn't. Chapter 893. Chapter 893. Am I not your dear little sister? The meat contained the energy of Jun Linyuan's abnormal flame, and the energy had been released so that other people could absorb it. Feng Wu sensed that there was a little more fire energy in her dantian after eating the first skewer. It wasn't grilled meat but ambrosia. Jun Linyuan darted an indifferent look at Feng Wu. She was tittering like a little bird. Right now she was behaving like a normal child, and he almost wanted to rub her head. However, Jun Linyuan was too proud to let his emotions show. Raising his hand, he was going to eat up the next skewer. "Ah, my meat! My meat!" Vexed, Feng Wu grabbed Jun Linyuan's arm and tried to take it from him. But Jun Linyuan wouldn't let her. Feng Wu was holding on to him like a monkey on the tree. "Gimme, gimme, gimme. You can't have it." Jun Linyuan. "Humph. Your Royal Highness." "Humph. Brother Jun, Brother Jun, Brother Jun. Am I not your dear little sister anymore?" The things Feng Wu would say for food. She was unscrupulous like that. Her sweet voice was like a feather brushing against Jun Linyuan's chest. It was ticklish. Even someone as overbearing and arrogant as Jun Linyuan had to surrender to her pleading. He cleared his throat and cast a stern look at Feng Wu. "Have you no shame?" Feng Wu looked perfectly innocent. "According to Feng Sun, you're like my half-brother, right?" Jun Linyuan cursed Feng Sun in his head. Achoo! Over on the other side of the campsite, Feng Sun and Xianyi were able to help all the candidates escape, even the unconscious Gong Sun Qing. They were catching their breaths when Feng Sun sneezed. He rubbed his nose. "Who's talking about me behind my back?" "Little Feng Wu, maybe?" Xianyi asked. Feng Sun rubbed his nose and looked concerned. "I hope it was her. If she has time to talk about me, she should be out of harm's way." Xianyi patted his shoulder. "Don't worry. Boss Jun went after her. I'm sure he'll find the girl." Feng Sun shook his head. "Judging by the look on Boss Jun's face, I think Xiao Wu has been taken by that frosty night beast." Xianyi nodded. Feng Sun didn't try to keep his voice down, so many other candidates heard him. And they all had different opinions. Many were either worried about Feng Wu or felt sympathetic. However, there were also people like Mu Yaoyao, who were filled with delight at Feng Wu's misfortune. Yaoying said under her breath, "Has Feng Wu been taken by the frosty night beast?" Mu Yaoyao nodded. "Is she going to die then?" Mu Yaoyao nodded. "But didn't His Royal Highness go after her?" Mu Yaoyao smirked. "His Royal Highness hates Feng Wu. What do you think is going to happen? Yaoing cried out a little. I see. Muyao grinned. It seems that we won't have to see Fengwu out and about anymore. Life will be so pleasant. Of course, people like Mu Yaoyao kept their joy to themselves and didn't let it show. After all, Feng Sun had made it clear that he was on Feng Wu's side and he would always back her up. Because of that, Mu Yaoyao didn't dare mess with Feng Wu openly. However, Feng Sun was saying something similar. Chapter 894. Chapter 894. Where's your integrity? But Boss Jun doesn't like Xiao Wu. Feng Sun was dispirited and he sounded disturbed when he said, will he find Xiao Wu too much trouble and refuse to save her? Xian Yi's mouth fell open. Feng Sun went on. Do you remember that ugly girl in northern border city? Boss Jun turned a blind eye to her and left her to fend for herself. To Boss Jun, little Feng Wu is no different to that ugly girl. They're just strangers to him. Feng Sun could never have imagined that Feng Wu the stranger had just shouted at Jun Linyuan and called herself his dear little sister. His eyes would pop out if he heard those words. Xian Yi glanced at Feng Sun. You're overthinking it. Feng Sun glared at Xian Yi. How is that overthinking? I'm worried sick here and you're still making fun of me. I see. She's not your sister. That's why you don't care. Xian Yi rolled his eyes at Feng Sun. Boss Jun worries about little Feng Wu 10 times more than you do. Okay? Saving her is going to be his top priority. He won't let anything happen to her. Back in the snow house, Feng Wu was practically on top of Jun Linyuan. Brother Jun, my dear brother Jun. Jun Linyuan seemed to have grown impatient. Fine, fine. You can have it. Elated, Feng Wu snatched the skewered meat and held it very tightly, fearing that Jun Linyuan would take it away. She eyed the skewers in Jun Linyuan's hands as she wolfed down her own. Oh, Brother Jun, please grill some more. You're still hungry. Yes. Brother Jun, please grill some more for me. You're still hungry. Brother Jun, are you tired? Shall I massage your shoulders and legs? Feng Wu had put her own concoction on her wound. Together with the effect of the spectacular skewered meat, she was making a rapid recovery. She was already able to move freely. Don't. Jun Linyuan cast a stern look at Feng Wu. Stay where you are and don't move. Feng Wu pouted. All right. She gave it some thought, then took out a small notebook and began to take notes. Dos and don'ts. Rule number 1. Avoid all physical contact with His Royal Highness. Feng Wu drew 5 stars next to it, stressing its importance. Feng Wu had decided that she would write down all the things she needed to watch out for when she was around Jun Linyuan. This way, maybe she wouldn't set him off that often. What are you writing? The Crown Prince was intrigued. And there weren't many things in this world that could interest him. But anything concerning Feng Wu was an exception, even the most trivial ones. Feng Wu didn't stop writing when she said, I'm making note. What notes? Feng Wu finished writing at that moment and put it away in her chest pocket. She then beamed at him. Take a guess. Jun Linyuan said proudly, not interested. Then you shouldn't have asked. Resting her chin on her palms, Feng Wu swallowed when she saw the grilled meat turning in Jun Linyuan's hands. She said, I envy them. Them? Jun Linyuan was at a loss. I mean Feng Sun and Xian Yi. Feng Wu sighed with emotion. As your best friends, they can have this sort of grilled meat all the time. I'm so envious. Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes at her. After hanging out with him all these years, Feng Sun and Xian Yi had never tasted his cooking. This was the first time he had ever cooked for anyone. Although the proud crown prince would never admit it, he only snorted and didn't reply. Chapter 895 A Love Confession? Chapter 895. A Love Confession? 1. That night, a pair of teenagers sat against the wall in front of the dancing flames. Their beautiful faces glowed in the warm light. They looked as pretty as a picture. All was harmonious and peaceful, and one could almost see pink bubbles in the air. Warmed up by the fire, Feng Wu began to doze off. She nodded like a chicken pecking at grain. Seeing this, Jun Linyuan shook his head and gently pressed her head to his shoulder as he mumbled, "Troublesome woman." The girl had to be asleep. Otherwise, she would have jumped to her feet at the retort, protesting his comment. At the thought of the girl yelling at him with her hands on her waist, Jun Linyuan shook his head with a wry smile. He was baffled when he saw his reflection in the ice. He was grinning like a goofball. Jun Linyuan, the person capable of shaking the empire with his anger, was smiling at the girl like a fool. What was more, he could think of nothing but the girl. He was obsessed with her smile, her voice, her movements, her everything. The unusual feeling was both intoxicating and dangerous. Turning his head, Jun Linyuan saw how her eyelashes cast shadows on her face. His eyes flickered. The girl gave him insomnia last night after sneaking into his room to kiss him in the middle of the night. Tonight, with her head on his shoulder, he was wide awake again. Was Xianyi right? Jun Linyuan considered the possibility that he was in love with this girl. Could he actually have fallen for a cripple? A good-for-nothing who would die in a few decades? The crown prince shook his head. Despite his high IQ, Jun Linyuan was useless when it came to relationships. He sat there in a daze until the sky outside began to brighten. Seeing Feng Wu's long eyelashes flutter, Jun Linyuan pushed Feng Wu away from him. Thump! Feng Wu's head bumped into a wall. That woke her up completely. Seeing the dent she made in the snow wall, Feng Wu was baffled. Rubbing her forehead, she looked up at Jun Linyuan in confusion. Did I do that? Seeing Feng Wu's swollen forehead, Jun Linyuan felt a little guilty, but he only raised his chin. It wasn't me. Feng Wu pouted, but couldn't think of any other possibility. She still mumbled in bewilderment, I think someone shoved me into that wall when I was still asleep. Jun Linyuan coughed into his fist. Your Royal Highness, have you caught a cold? Feng Wu asked immediately. Jun Linyuan had to be all right. She needed him to keep her safe while that frosty night beast was still lurking somewhere. The crown prince enjoyed the concern in the girl's voice, but still kept his face straight. He only darted Feng Wu a glance without another word. Hey, what's this? Feng Wu then picked up something on the ground and studied it. It was no common pouch. Instead of cloth, it was made from some special material. Feng Wu could even sense a faint fluctuation of energy from it. Is it an infinity storage bag? Feng Wu asked Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. Chapter 896 A Love Confession? Chapter 896 A Love Confession? 2. Is it an infinity storage bag? Feng Wu asked Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. Jun Linyuan snorted. It really is? Feng Wu's eyes twinkled. She would like to have one of her own. That way, she would be able to conceal the fact that she had a ring space, which would make things much easier for her. Jun Linyuan glanced at her, then gave her an indifferent nod. So this is what an infinity storage bag looks like. Feng Wu only handed it back to Jun Linyuan after studying it carefully. There. Jun Linyuan frowned a little and stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was bemused. Isn't it yours? Put it away. Jun Linyuan found Feng Wu unbelievable. No. He crossed his arms arrogantly. What do you mean no? It's dirty. He rolled his eyes at her. Feng Wu raised the pouch and shook it in front of his face. What do you mean it's dirty? You heard me. Feng Wu ground her teeth. Do you mean that it has dirt on it? Jun Linyuan only snorted, but said nothing. Feng Wu gritted her teeth. Jun Linyuan, you're so wasteful. This is an infinity storage bag. Not some makeshift pouch made by your maids. My maids don't make makeshift pouches. No servant of his would dare be that careless. Feng Wu snapped, you're not listening. This isn't some common pouch, but an infinity storage bag. You're going to throw it away because it has a little dirt on it? Jun Linyuan said, yes. Are you sure? Yes. You mean it? Yes. Fine. It's mine now. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu. Whatever. Feng Wu grinned. She was over the moon. To Jun Linyuan, this was just a storage bag that he wouldn't think twice about throwing away. However, it was a treasure to her. She sent a streak of spiritual essence into the bag. Wait. She saw that it was quite a spacious one. The area inside was at least a few square meters wide. And it wasn't empty. A shelf of books stood in one corner, and Feng Wu's eyes lit up after a quick glance. Holy shit! The books were what she needed for Imperial College in the next few years. But she didn't linger long, in case Jun Linyuan noticed what he had left behind. Is the bag empty? She asked deliberately. Jun Linyuan said, I don't know. Then, do whatever you want with it. He didn't seem to mind at all. Feng Wu grinned. This was wonderful. With that shelf of books, she would be able to teach herself for the next few years in Imperial College, for she had also noticed that those books still had Jun Linyuan's notes in them. While Feng Wu was secretly celebrating this, Jun Linyuan was also smiling at an angle that she couldn't see. All was perfect when, watch out! Jun Linyuan yanked Feng Wu back. The next second he was out of sight. Feng Wu shuddered inwardly. A formidable power she had never experienced before was charging at her from below. Chapter 897 A Love Confession? Chapter 897 A Love Confession? 3. Run! Jun Linyuan shouted at Feng Wu. Feng Wu knew that at her current level, she would only be a burden to Jun Linyuan if she stayed here. Not to mention that she was still injured. Without hesitation, Feng Wu ran in the other direction as fast as she could. She would look over her shoulder from time to time. Jun Linyuan was already exchanging blows with the Frosty Night Beast in midair. After a night of rest, the Frosty Night Beast was back to its normal state. Feng Wu even thought that it looked more powerful than before. Thump! 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 Sounds of the fight rang out incessantly behind her. They echoed in the snowy mountains. Feng Wu ran down the slope. She had realized that the fight might start another avalanche. When that happened, she might really be buried this time. This had to be one of Feng Wu's most unlucky days. The moment she thought about the avalanche, she heard a crack from a nearby peak. Feng Wu turned around and was dumbfounded. An avalanche. It was really happening. Her worst fear had just come true. In midair, Jun Linyuan and the beast continued their deadly battle. Wind blew snow into the air, blurring Feng Wu's sight. She was worried about Jun Linyuan. That blood she saw yesterday didn't seem right. But there was no time for her to worry about other people. Run, run, run. If she stayed here, she would be a burden to Jun Linyuan. Run, run, run. Feng Wu ran for her life like there was no tomorrow. The avalanche was rushing down in her direction. She would be devoured if she didn't hurry up. However, the snow was coming at too tremendous a speed for her to get away. It started off 10 kilometers away from her. But before she realized it, it was catching up to her. 5 kilometers. 3 kilometers. 1 kilometer. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder again and saw that the snow was coming at her like a crashing wave. It was as if an ocean was pouring over her head. The wave of snow rose to what seemed like 1,000 meters. It was a shocking scene. She would be 100 meters underground if the snow got her. Feng Wu knew she wouldn't be able to get out when that happened. She would suffocate. Death was on her heels. 500 m. 300 m. 100 m. Feng Wu didn't need to turn around to know that the snow was about to hit her in the back. She couldn't do it anymore. Feng Wu was overwhelmed with despair. She couldn't run any faster. She was going to be buried. She would never be able to get out. However, her mind spun faster in this moment of crisis. Little Phoenix. At that critical moment, Feng Wu summoned Little Phoenix. The bird was from her master and was meant to be her ride. It was still too little for that job, but teleport us. As high as you can. Before Little Phoenix realized what was going on, Feng Wu had cried out her order. Startled, Little Phoenix did as told before it could even think. Feng Wu caught the bird by the talons just before it acted, and she was teleported along with it. 1 kilometer was Little Phoenix's limit. With Feng Wu in the upward direction, it only made it 500 m. Chapter 898 Jun Linyuan. Chapter 898, Jun Linyuan. 1. Right at that moment, the avalanche caught up to them. The wall of snow smashed down on Feng Wu and Little Phoenix. At the last moment, Feng Wu put the bird back into her ring. She, on the other hand, curled up into a ball before the snow swallowed her. She had it all planned out. She would let the bird bring her up into the air before the snow got her. That way she wouldn't be buried as deep. Waves of snow kept crashing down above her and Feng Wu was surrounded by darkness. The impact made her head swim. She would love to pass out and have a nap. But she knew perfectly well that she couldn't do that. If she slept now, she would never be able to wake up again. To Feng Wu's frustration, she was disoriented in the darkness. She didn't know which direction was up. She had to dig herself out now. Finding the right direction would save her a lot of energy. Luckily, her mind was sharpest in the most critical situations. I'll let gravity do its job. If Feng Wu spat, her saliva would fall downward. All she needed to do was dig in the opposite direction. She then started digging. Thanks to her achievements in both the ice and fire attributes, she was able to melt an upward tunnel that was wide enough for her to crawl through. Soon, she created a passageway which headed straight up. Cough, cough. With much difficulty, Feng Wu was able to get herself out. Lying over a pile of snow, Feng Wu panted for air. She had been so close to suffocating down there. Luckily, she had been buried at a much shallower level after her maneuver. Otherwise, she would have been killed. Feng Wu looked up to find endless white stretching out in all directions. Everywhere she turned, she saw nothing but snow. The avalanche had wiped clean all traces. What about Jun Linyuan? Feng Wu looked up at the spot where Jun Linyuan and the beast had been fighting a moment ago, but they were nowhere to be found. Seriously? Feng Wu's stomach lurched. This wasn't good. Without hesitation, she ran in that direction. She had been too absorbed in running for her life earlier to care about her wound, but the pain caught her attention now. The wound inflicted by the frosty night beast was still fresh, and it began to hurt again after all the running. But none of that mattered. She needed to find Jun Linyuan now. Was he all right? Feng Wu had confidence in Jun Linyuan, but she recalled the blood on the wall. It had smelled funny. Feng Wu suspected that the guy had been poisoned, but Jun Linyuan wouldn't let her see it, which vexed her. As a result, his wound had remained untreated. Feng Wu smacked her head in frustration. She shouldn't have overlooked it. Before long, she reached the spot where the fight had taken place. The snow walls were long gone, presumably buried by the avalanche. There was nothing but snow here. Jun Linyuan was nowhere to be found. Nor was the beast. It was as if they had never been here. Jun Linyuan. Chapter 899 Jun Linyuan. Chapter 899 Jun Linyuan. 2. Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu shouted at the top of her lungs. However, no matter how loudly she called, she got no reply. It was as if she was the only one left in the world. Unprecedented loneliness and apprehension struck Feng Wu. She stood there, feeling helpless. Wait. Feng Wu smacked her forehead. She couldn't find him, but the cub could. The cub was born with a nose for sniffing out treasures, which was practically any item on Jun Linyuan. Hell, the man himself was a treasure, so she should leave it to the cub. Feng Wu took the cub out of the ring. The little thing was fast asleep as if there was no tomorrow. It shuddered involuntarily when Feng Wu took it out. The cold woke it up. Opening its eyes, the cub saw Feng Wu's face. It then turned in her palm and went back to sleep. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Feng Tutu, wake up. Wake up now. Feng Wu patted the cub's head. Feng Tutu opened its sleepy eyes and looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. It seemed that it could fall back asleep at any moment. It was as if it was going to doze off as soon as Feng Wu finished talking. Feng Wu flicked it on the head. Wake up already. I need your expertise now. Find Jun Linyuan for me. Feng Wu rubbed Feng Tutu's head. Do you remember Jun Linyuan? He's that human teenager with a poker face. The one you want to run away from all the time. Feng Tutu sounded reluctant. But Feng Wu smacked it on the head. Now. Feng Tutu ran off, turning around to give Feng Wu a pleading look every few steps. "Be quick about it," Feng Wu said sternly. Feng Tutu sighed aggrievedly. With no other choice, it had to start searching. "Wait," Feng Tutu sniffed, then ran to a spot a few steps away and started digging. "That fast?" Feng Wu was pleasantly surprised. However, she frowned after another look. If she remembered correctly, this was where she and Jun Linyuan had spent the night. Jun Linyuan had even built a snow house here, which had been buried by the avalanche. That was where Feng Tutu was digging. Feng Wu shook her head. No, this isn't right." Feng Wu rushed over to stop the cub. "The smell here is from last night. Not here." Feng Tutu turned to look at Feng Wu. Feng Wu nodded solemnly. "It's from last night. Go search somewhere else." Feng Tutu tilted its head, then went back to its digging. Feng Wu was vexed. "I told you this scent is from when he was here last night. Feng Tutu, stop playing and be serious. Find him." Feng Tutu ignored her and went on digging. Feng Wu was going to stop the cub when it jumped into the pit it dug. That naughty little thing. She would teach it a lesson once this was over. Melting the snow with her fire spiritual energy, Feng Wu followed Feng Tutu into the snow. Luckily, she could still get air here. Feng Tutu was tiny and nimble. It was rather difficult for Feng Wu to catch the cub. "Feng Tutu, get back here." Feng Wu almost caught it a few times, but the cub was always able to get away at the last moment. Whenever Feng Wu turned to leave, it would run to Feng Wu in a teasing manner. Chapter 900 Jun Linyuan. Chapter 900, Jun Linyuan, 3. Feng Wu was speechless. The cub was just a baby and it was already so willful. Imagine how it would behave when it grew up. Moreover, this really wasn't the time to play hide and seek. Finding Jun Linyuan was Feng Wu's top priority. She was about to summon Feng Tutu back to her and go back up when Feng Tutu showed up again. This time it had a small pouch in its mouth, which looked rather familiar. Feng Wu's stomach lurched when she saw the pattern on it. The two birds were the one she had embroidered herself under Jun Linyuan's supervision in World Tower. She had made them look like a pair of ducklings. That was the pouch Feng Wu was holding now. Jun Linyuan. Astonished, Feng Wu picked Feng Tutu up immediately. "Where did you find this? Take me to him." She had no time to wonder why Jun Linyuan had such an ugly pouch on him. All she could think of was, something must have happened to Jun Linyuan. Feng Tutu then led Feng Wu to a snow house. To Feng Wu's astonishment, that snow house which Jun Linyuan had made with a wave of his hand was still intact. They had to be hundreds of meters underground now. The walls had managed to withstand such a heavy load of snow. A teenager in a black robe lay inside with his hands crossed on his stomach. His eyes were shut and he wasn't moving. There was ice all over him and frost covered his hair, eyebrows and entire face. Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu drew in her breath. Involuntarily, she reached out to check Jun Linyuan's breathing. But he wasn't breathing. Oh God. At that moment, Feng Wu's head went blank, as if she had just been struck by lightning. Had the formidable crown prince died? Feng Wu panicked at that thought. Without thinking, she activated her spiritual energy and sent a streak into Jun Linyuan's energy channels. Thump! Her spiritual essence bounced back. Feng Wu was speechless. Jun Linyuan wasn't breathing and she couldn't get her spiritual essence into him. What should she do? Feng Wu was flustered. Even Jun Linyuan would die if he stopped breathing for too long. They were short of oxygen this deep underground, which didn't help at all. Feng Wu threw Jun Linyuan onto her back and quickly climbed back up to the surface. After laying Jun Linyuan flat on his back on the snow, Feng Wu bent over and put her mouth over his without hesitation. She breathed some air into Jun Linyuan's lungs. Ding! Jun Linyuan opened his eyes as if on cue. And he looked into Feng Wu's eyes. Both of them widened their eyes and they were taken aback. Realizing that she was on top of Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu scrambled to get off. In her flustered state, Feng Wu fell into the hole that she had just climbed up from. It was a few hundred meters deep. Feng Wu fell in headfirst and there was no way for her to stop. At that critical moment, Jun Linyuan reached out and caught Fengwu by the hand. Fengwu had fallen in halfway when Jun Linyuan caught her. If he hadn't, she would have dropped down a few hundred meters and cracked her head open. With Jun Linyuan's help, Fengwu steadied herself and climbed out of the hole. Before she could let out a breath of relief, she heard Jun Linyuan's voice. Chapter 901 That Look. Chapter 901. That look one. Were you going to kill yourself as penance? Jun Linyuan's voice rang in her ears. Cough cough. Fengwu choked on her own spit. She looked up and threw a dirty look at Jun Linyuan. What did you just say? Nothing. You so said something. Fengwu glared at that stunning face. You said I was trying to kill myself as penance. Why on earth would I do that? Jun Linyuan raised his chin proudly. You know perfectly well what you did. Fengwu was offended. Are you referring to what happened just then? Jun Linyuan didn't grant her an answer. Fengwu went on. You were unconscious and not breathing. I was only performing artificial respiration on you. Jun Linyuan looked over his shoulder and darted a knowing look at Fengwu. What's with that look on your face? You don't believe me? Fengwu glared at him. Jun Linyuan turned around. Go on. Try harder. Fengwu exploded. I'm not pretending. It's true. I was only trying to save you. Why won't you believe me? What else did you think I was doing? Jun Linyuan grunted. It's not like you've never done it before. Why bother covering it up? I've never done it. Fengwu stopped abruptly. She smacked her forehead in frustration. She lost that bet to Xiani the other day. And as a result, she had to sneak into Jun Linyuan's cabin in the middle of the night to confess her love to him. As well as... Fengwu buried her face in her hands and was utterly frustrated. She would never be able to explain herself. Looking up, she stared at Jun Linyuan with bright eyes. Your Royal Highness, would you believe me if I told you that everything is just a coincidence? Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes. I didn't know that coincidences happen that often. They do. Are you an idiot or do you take me for one? Fengwu said, but... Is it that hard for you to admit your feelings for me? Fengwu scratched her head in frustration. But I don't have any feelings for you. What am I supposed to admit? The smile disappeared and Jun Linyuan's face turned livid. Fengwu then noticed something on Jun Linyuan's chest. You're hurt. She was shocked when she saw blood seeping through the clothes covering his chest, and rushed over to put pressure on it. Oh God! Fengwu cried out when she examined the wound. She scolded Jun Linyuan. It's centimeters away from your heart. Your heart could have been punctured. Did you not know you have a deep cut on your chest? Why didn't you tell me? Jun Linyuan glared at Fengwu. Go away. Don't touch me. If she didn't have any feelings for him, she should stay out of his way. Fengwu felt like screaming. She hated it when people didn't take care of their own bodies. She glared back at him. Go away. Who will treat your wound if I leave now? This isn't the time for you to throw a tantrum. Stop behaving like a spoiled child. I won't buy it. Without me you'll die here. Shut up if you still want to live. Fengwu was as fierce as a tigress. She kept throwing dirty looks at him as she quickly wrapped up his wound. And she was able to keep the crown prince under control. The formidable teenager could only stare at her aggrievedly. Chapter 902. Chapter 902. Does he know her secret? This girl had just yelled at him. How dare she? However, despite her reproach, Jun Linyuan didn't feel offended at all. Instead, he even basked in her attitude, for it gave him the feeling that she cared for him. That was so strange. The crown prince got rid of that idea immediately and turned his attention back to Fengwu, who was busy treating his wound. Only this felt so familiar, as if the same thing had happened before. The girl's smell, the look in her eyes, and her frown. That's too much. Jun Linyuan sounded displeased when he saw what Fengwu was doing. Did she have too many gauze bandages or what? How many more layers did she want to wrap around him? Fengwu threw a dirty look at him. Do you have any idea how badly you're injured? The beast's claws were so close to your heart. 1 centimeter more, and you would already be dead. She went on. And that's not the only injury you have. There are cuts all over your abdomen. They'll get worse if I don't wrap them up. Feel free to ignore your own health, but I won't. You care about my health? Jun Linyuan asked in a mesmerizing and husky voice. Feng Wu glanced at him. A doctor cares about all her patients. Jun Linyuan grunted but didn't say anything. All of a sudden he blurted out, "There's this person I really dislike." "Who's that?" Feng Wu asked without looking up. She was finishing up with the bandages. Jun Linyuan's stare was intense. Feng Wu paused a little, but before she could say anything, Jun Linyuan went on, stressing each word and keeping his gaze on her the entire time. "She's this girl I met in Frozen Forest." Feng Wu's heart skipped a beat. A girl he met in Frozen Forest. Wasn't that Feng Wu herself? Her heart was pounding. She must be very pretty then? Feng Wu swore her voice was trembling. No, she wasn't. Right? Can we please change the subject, Your Royal Highness? Aren't you supposed to be a man of few words? What's with all the small talk now? She's a thief. Jun Linyuan snorted and emphasized in a childish manner. An annoying thief. Feng Wu said, I see. She was very bold to offend you like that. Jun Linyuan actually nodded. Bao Er would be cured by now if that girl hadn't stolen my immortal spiritual fruit. She's still bedridden now, with her life hanging in the balance. So, when I catch her, I'll chop her into pieces. Jun Linyuan smirked. Feng Wu almost jolted. Seriously? She thought that Jun Linyuan had forgotten about it by now. As it turned out, he had been holding a grudge this whole time and was eager to take revenge. Feng Wu asked tentatively, You still haven't caught her then? Almost there. Staring at Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan's lips curled into a smile. What was that supposed to mean? Did he have a lead or had he found out who she was? Feng Wu didn't dare to look into Jun Linyuan's eyes. However, she thought she would give herself away if she avoided eye contact. So she forced herself to meet Jun Linyuan's gaze with wide-open eyes. Why did you stop? Jun Linyuan reminded her. Right, yes, there's enough gauze already, I'm going to wrap it up. At Jun Linyuan's reminder, Feng Wu tied another type of knot instead of a bow. Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Wu's nimble fingers. Chapter 903. Chapter 903. Who's Bao Er? Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Wu's nimble fingers. And he smiled a little. Feng Wu almost broke under the pressure. Her hands were shaking so badly that she had difficulty tying the knot. Why are you shaking? The Crown Prince's husky voice sounded mesmerizing. Feng Wu stared at her fingers, which were trembling from her guilty conscience. She couldn't control it. She said the first thing that came to her mind. Because it's freezing. Look at all the snow around us. And the wind. Aren't you cold? What she really thought was, if Jun Linyuan learned what really happened, she would be dead before she knew it. Just then, a heavy cape fell on Feng Wu's lap. Put it on then. But you're still injured. Feng Wu wanted to give the cape back, but the Crown Prince cast her a stern glance. Face dark, he narrowed his eyes. Say no again. I dare you. Feng Wu stole a diffident glance at Jun Linyuan. What would happen if he knew who she was? By the way, who's Bao Er? Feng Wu asked curiously. She had heard that name from several different people already, but after all these months in the imperial capital, she still hadn't met her. I'll introduce you to her next time, Jun Linyuan said mildly. All right. As soon as Feng Wu replied, she felt that something was off. What was it? Jun Linyuan then said, I've lost that immortal spiritual fruit. I won't let the same thing happen to the Heart of Frost essence this time. Feng Wu's eyes widened and she stared at Jun Linyuan. What do you mean? The Heart of Frost essence will help Bao Er with her illness. Feng Wu started shaking again. She had asked for Yu Minji's help to have the physical tryout take place in Proud Snowfield. Just for that Heart of Frost essence. And Jun Linyuan was going to compete with her for it once more. Why are you shaking again? Jun Linyuan noticed Feng Wu's pale face and how badly she was trembling. Wrapped in the big, heavy cape, the girl looked tiny in contrast. Jun Linyuan found his heart going out to her. But he eliminated that idea from his head almost immediately. He felt pity for the fierce Feng Wu. His head had to be muddled from fighting that beast. Feng Wu, on the other hand, began to formulate a strategy. From now on, she had to stay as far away from Jun Linyuan as possible. The last thing she wanted was for him to realize that she was the ugly girl. After all, he was very smart and she could never be careful enough. Just then, Boss Jun, Boss Jun. They heard a familiar voice in the distance. Feng Wu looked up and spotted Feng Sun. She had been alone with Jun Linyuan in the middle of nowhere, which made her really fidgety. Feng Wu had been at a loss over what to do when Feng Sun showed up. What a blessing! Feng Wu was over the moon. Jumping to her feet, she waved her hands in excitement and hopped around. I'm here. Feng Sun, we're here. Jun Linyuan darted a glance at Feng Wu, looking somewhat displeased. Was she that happy to see Feng Sun? Was she so reluctant to be alone with him? Feng Sun ran at lightning speed. He started off 2 mountains away, but seemed to reach them in no time. Sister. Brother. They held hands and jumped around. Jun Linyuan glared at them with a grim look on his face. Since when were the two of them that close? Behave yourselves. Jun Linyuan warned them in a cold voice. Feng Wu let go of Feng Sun's hands right away. She believed that since Jun Linyuan considered Feng Sun his best friend, he had to be displeased to see Feng Sun being so friendly with her. Humph. Chapter 904. Chapter 904. Not good. At that thought, Feng Wu threw a dirty look at Jun Linyuan. The guy was such an overprotective friend. When would she get to join the club? Feng Sun let go of Feng Wu, turned in Jun Linyuan's direction, and saw the gauze wrapped around him. Ah! Feng Sun shrieked and blanched in astonishment. Feng Wu jumped up in surprise. Rushing over to Jun Linyuan, Feng Sun stared at his chest. Boss Jun, are you hurt? Jun Linyuan grunted. Oh God, Boss Jun, you're injured. How did that happen? Feng Wu was bemused. Why can't it happen? She had seen those scars on Jun Linyuan. One look and she knew that they had been inflicted when he was little. Feng Sun glanced at Feng Wu. You don't understand. Boss Jun has never lost a fight, not even to magical beasts. He crushes all his opponents. It's impossible to injure him. Feng Wu rolled her eyes. All human beings can get hurt. But Boss Jun is. Jun Linyuan silenced Feng Sun with a wave of his hand. As soon as Jun Linyuan rose to his feet, Feng Wu threw the cape over his shoulders. Luckily, she had reacted quickly enough earlier. She had taken off the cape before Feng Sun reached them. Otherwise, she could guarantee that Feng Sun would overthink it. Jun Linyuan kept his brooding gaze on Feng Wu the entire time, which gave her the creeps. She was even more on edge. Not only hasn't Boss Jun ever gotten injured, he's never failed any assignment either. Feng Sun said proudly. However, he decided to tell the truth after some thought. Well, apart from that time when he was tricked by that ugly girl in Frozen Forest. Feng Wu. Clenching her fists, she shot an accusing glance at Feng Sun. My dear brother, please let it drop and talk about something else. To her surprise, Jun Linyuan interjected. He asked, how's the investigation going? Feng Sun replied, Boss Jun, we're getting close. Intel says that Feng Xiaowu has arrived at the imperial capital already. Feng Wu's stomach lurched. Feng Sun went on, there's more. I've learned that Feng Xiaowu is actually a cultivator, although she pretended she had no such ability in front of us. Feng Sun clenched his fists. That little liar. I was so kind to her. I trusted her and took her under my wing. That was what she did to repay me. And she even set me up. Overwhelmed by her guilty conscience, Feng Wu quietly backed away from Feng Sun. You really have a lead on her? Flustered, Feng Wu asked gingerly. Yes. She was often spotted in male clothing in neighboring northern border cities such as the cities of Luo, Lian, and Hu. Following that, we've been able to find out a lot about her. Feng Sun grinned. Feng Wu almost forgot to breathe. He was right. She had visited those cities in her disguise as a doctor. If Jun Linyuan followed that lead, It would only be a matter of time before he found out who she really was. Xiao Wu, why are you trembling? Seeing Feng Wu shake from head to toe, Feng Sun said grumpily, You're little Feng Wu and she's Feng Xiaowu. Your names are a bit similar, but she's a totally different person. Why do you look so worried? Feng Wu wanted to smack Feng Sun on the head. Was he trying to make Jun Linyuan connect the two names together? Stop reminding him already. However, Jun Linyuan pondered over those words. Little Feng Wu. Feng Xiaowu. Chapter 905 I Know Her Secret. Chapter 905. I Know Her Secret 1. Feng Wu jumped to her feet. Stop calling me little Feng Wu. I'm just Feng Wu. She was overwhelmed with regret. Why had she called herself Feng Xiaowu back then? She should have made up another name. Wait, she used that same name when she treated patients in other cities as well. She would only have brought more trouble on herself if those people didn't know her as Feng Xiaowu. Scratching her head, Feng Wu was a little on edge. She had an inkling that they would figure it out sooner or later. How about turning herself in? Instead of waiting to be discovered. No. Judging by Jun Linyuan's attitude, Bao Er meant the world to him. On the other hand, Feng Wu herself was worthless in comparison. Feng Wu believed that Jun Linyuan would snap her neck as soon as he learned the truth. For the sake of her own life, Feng Wu couldn't expose herself now. She tried to change the subject and turned to Feng Sun. Hey, why are you alone? Where are the others? We split up to look for you, but I got lucky. It didn't take me long to find you, ha ha ha. Feng Sun then examined Feng Wu and looked pained. He rubbed Feng Wu's head. We thought we lost you when we realized that you had been snatched by the frosty night beast. I'm so glad that you're okay. Kiddo, I was so scared. Feng Sun pulled Feng Wu into his arms and patted her little head. Narrowing his eyes, Jun Linyuan yanked Feng Wu back and put her on the other side. That almost threw Feng Wu off balance. Xiao Wu. Are you going to stay here forever? After throwing a dirty look at Feng Sun, the crown prince shot a warning glance at Feng Wu. Feng Wu rubbed her nose. Well, it seemed that Feng Sun was much more important to Jun Linyuan. Back at the campsite, almost everyone welcomed Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan back. Mu Yaoyao and her people were the only exceptions. They were noticeably disappointed when they saw Feng Wu. Why is she still alive? I thought that beast would kill her for sure. It's like what they say, annoying people are the hardest to kill. Feng Wu is so repulsive she'll probably live forever. I bet His Royal Highness saved her, or she would never have made it back alive. Feng Wu ignored Mu Yaoyao and her little group. She went to find Yuminji as soon as she got back. The two of them met in a quiet corner. Seeing how flustered and nervous Feng Wu was, Yuminji was concerned. What's wrong? Something bothering you? Yuminji's imagination ran wild again. It's Jun Linyuan, isn't it? I'll go talk to him. It's not that. Feng Wu stopped him. What is it then? Feng Wu gritted her teeth. I guess you're partially right. What do you mean? Feng Wu said. He's onto me. Onto you what? Frozen forest. Yuminji was the only person Feng Wu could talk to on the subject. She hadn't admitted it when Yuminji questioned her before, but this was as good as tacit confirmation. Yuminji understood as soon as Feng Wu said those two words. He smacked his hand down on a pile of snow. It really was you. You're Feng Xiao. You. Feng Wu covered his mouth immediately. Jun Linyuan and Feng Sun were looking everywhere for Feng Xiao. What if they heard him? Luckily, it was very similar to her real name, and no one was close enough to hear them. Chapter 906 I Know Her Secret. Chapter 906. I Know Her Secret too. Yuminji gestured that he would keep his voice down, and only then did Feng Wu let go of him. It was you. It really was you. Yuminji pointed at Feng Wu. You naughty girl. You fooled me for so long. Feng Wu grinned. Teehee. Yuminji said, now tell me, was that laxative powder really one of your concoctions? He had actually run an investigation, and his capable staff had gotten to the bottom of it. Feng Wu had created the recipe for that laxative powder when she was just a little girl. Feng Wu glanced at Yu Minji, then looked into the distance. Do you mean excruciating soul-destroying bone-crushing mind-poisoning pill of 10,000 ants? Yu Minji. Feng Wu beamed at him. Embarrassed, Yu Minji glared at Feng Wu. You'll never let that drop, will you? I didn't say that. Feng Wu. What now? How can you talk to me like nothing happened after what you did to me? I'm so. Yu Minji was still lashing out at Feng Wu about his predicament when someone interrupted them. What did Feng Wu do to you? Was that Feng Sun? Feng Wu looked over her shoulder and almost fainted. Jun Linyuan and Xianyi were also here. And the crown prince's face was as dark as a stormy night. As if Feng Wu didn't have enough on her plate, Yu Minji decided to sling an arm over Feng Wu's shoulders as he threw a taunting look at Jun Linyuan. He then said to Feng Sun, Young Lord Feng, I think Feng Wu and I can work it out ourselves. Feng Sun snapped. Shoving Yu Minji off Feng Wu's shoulders, Feng Sun pulled his sister behind him. He then glared at Yu Minji. I'm warning you. She's my sister. She's off limits. Yu Minji grinned. Brother-in-law, be civil. Feng Sun flared up. Who the hell is your brother-in-law? I'm going to kill you. Yu Minji shrugged. I'm the first person your sister met after she got back. Need I say more? Feng Sun turned to glare at Feng Wu. Little Feng Wu, you. Yu Minji dragged Feng Wu back to his side and whispered something in her ear. Feng Wu wanted to smack the guy on the head. The abominable Yu Minji was blackmailing her. Do as he said or he would tell everyone her secret. Feng Wu seethed with anger. She had considered Yu Minji a good friend and had come to him as soon as she got back. After pouring her heart out and asking him for his opinion, this was what she got in return. Feng Wu was furious. However, she was facing a dilemma. She could choose to collaborate with Yu Minji and make people think that there was something going on between the two of them. Or she could ignore Yu Minji, who would then reveal her secret. When that happened, Feng Sun probably would be the first one to jump at her. Feng Wu was so conflicted. However, the next second, Jun Linyuan made his move. No one saw exactly what he did, but the next thing they knew, Feng Wu was in his arms. Yu Minji narrowed his eyes. He was already a legend among people of his age, but after all his hard training, he was still inferior to Jun Linyuan. The frustration ruined his mood. Chapter 907 I Know Her Secret. Chapter 907. I Know Her Secret 3. Jun Linyuan then began to carry Feng Wu away. Do you think you can get between me and Xiao Wu so easily? Yu Minji shouted from behind. I know her secret. Exasperated, Yu Minji said those words. What secret? Suspicion was roused, and everyone shot Feng Wu strange looks. Feng Wu wanted to throttle Yu Minji. He had said the worst thing. Struggling free, Feng Wu jumped off Jun Linyuan and charged at Yu Minji. She glared at him. Fine, you know my secret. Come. Share it with everybody. Yu Minji was immediately intimidated. He stumbled back when he saw the fury in Feng Wu's eyes. Speak now. Don't hold back. What secret? Tell me. I'm listening. Feng Wu began to roll up her sleeves. This guy had practically handed Jun Linyuan the answer. How dare he try to provoke her? He was so dead. Yu Minji backed off like a deflated balloon. He gave Feng Wu a pleading look. I was bluffing, that's all. People bluff, don't they? Feng Wu spoke to Feng Sun over her shoulder as she rolled up her sleeves. I'm sorry, but we need to sort something out. Please give us some privacy. She was asking them to leave. Feng Sun darted a sympathetic glance at Yu Minji. That guy had just dug his own grave. Little Feng Wu was going to teach him a lesson now. Too bad they couldn't stay behind to witness it. Feng Wu sneered at Yu Minji after the others left. Yu Minji stepped back. Xiao Wu, my dear Xiao Wu, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're sorry for what? I shouldn't have said those things. And I shouldn't have taunted Jun Linyuan. And I shouldn't have tried to blackmail you. And that's all. Crack. Feng Wu's whip cracked the ground hard, scattering snow everywhere. Yu Minji lowered his head. I shouldn't have made them think that there was something between us. Feng Wu smirked. So you do know what you did? Yu Minji said, but you're going to marry me anyway. So what if I make them think that way? Crack. Feng Wu's whip whooshed down again. Fine. Maybe you're going to. Feng Wu closed in on Yu Minji as the guy fell back. Her gaze was cold. Yu Minji, patience has never been a virtue of mine. And I'm only going to say this once. The look on Feng Wu's face was solemn and serious. Do that again and you'll never be my friend. I mean it. Tossing the whip to the side, Feng Wu stormed off. Yu Minji bit his lip as he watched Feng Wu leave. There was a pensive look in his eyes. A few steps away, Feng Sun and Xianyi, who had been hiding behind a pile of snow, exchanged knowing looks. Both sighed in relief. Feng Sun was relieved because Feng Wu was his only baby sister. He would never let some lousy guy win her heart. Although by regular standards Yu Minji was an excellent candidate. Xianyi, on the other hand, was relieved because if Feng Wu and Yu Minji really were in love as the latter had suggested, there would be blood tonight. Xianyi didn't want to see that happen. They then went to visit Jun Linyuan in his wooden cabin. Chapter 908. Chapter 908. I don't want to see him. Right now, the crown prince was sulking in his cabin. Feng Sun and Xianyi walked in at that moment. Feng Sun sat down before Xianyi could speak and said in a cheerful voice, Little Feng Wu is killing that Yu Minji now. So hilarious. The crown prince seemed to light up a little at those words, and he turned to look at Feng Sun. Xianyi noticed the change in Jun Linyuan's attitude and he chimed in immediately. That's so true. Yu Minji really had it coming. You don't say. How dare he make up that stuff about little Feng Wu? I wanted to choke him myself. Exactly. Feng Sun said indignantly. Xiao Wu would never have feelings for him. Tisi. Xianyi nodded. I agree. Feng Sun went on. No man is good enough for Xiao Wu. Anyway, they all have to go through me before they can court her. With Xianyi's subtle guidance, Feng Sun said the right thing without knowing it. Gradually, Jun Linyuan's mood lifted. By the way, Boss Jun, how often do we need to change your bandages? After much babbling, Feng Sun and Xianyi finally remembered Jun Linyuan's injury. Once a day, said Jun Linyuan indifferently. It needs changing then. Feng Sun rose to his feet in a hurry. But I don't have any medication with me. Boss Jun, who treated you before? Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Sun. Xianyi gave Feng Sun a you idiot look. Feng Sun smacked his own forehead. It was little Feng Wu, wasn't it? Speaking of which, the girl is an excellent doctor. You two were alone out there. Who else could it have been? I'm so dumb. Jun Linyuan went on staring at Feng Sun. Feng Sun took the hint right away. I'll go fetch her now. He left right after that. Xianyi stayed behind. He frowned when he saw the thick layers of gauze around Jun Linyuan's chest. Is it serious? Jun Linyuan snorted. Don't overreact. If he thought they were overreacting, why did he give Feng Sun permission to go get Feng Wu? Just admit it. You want to see her. Xianyi vented his sarcasm inwardly. Feng Sun went to get little Feng Wu as told. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was giving the brat Yu Minji a warning by pulling his ear. Think twice before you try to make fun of me next time. If I catch you talking about me like that again, we'll stop being friends for good. That hurts. All right, Yu Minji cried out. He meant it. Feng Wu had her bottom line and he had just crossed it. Feng Wu was still mad when she got back to her tent. That was such a shitty thing for Yu Minji to do. However, she couldn't put her finger on exactly what she was mad at. Was it because of Yu Minji's attitude, or the fact that he had tried to make up things about her in front of Jun Linyuan? She just couldn't tell. Feng Wu was still trying to figure it out when... Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock at the door. Feng Sun walked in. He grabbed Feng Wu by her arm as soon as he saw her. Come with me. Quickly. Where to? After everything that had happened, Feng Wu was on high alert. To see Boss Jun, of course. No thanks. That was Feng Wu's first reaction. Jun Linyuan was the last person she wanted to see at the moment. She couldn't bear the taunting look in his eyes. Feng Sun was bewildered. You're not going? Then who's going to change Boss Jun's bandages? His wound has been treated already. Anyone can change his bandages now. Feng Wu handed Feng Sun a first aid kit. You do it. Chapter 909. Chapter 909. Your Royal Highness, it's me. Are you really not going? Feng Sun was bewildered. Wasn't Feng Wu always following Boss Jun around? Why wouldn't she go to him now? Feng Wu rolled her eyes. Forget it. Feng Sun asked curiously, but why? Feng Wu sighed. What do you think? People are already saying that I won't leave His Royal Highness alone. I would only be confirming their speculation if I go to him now. You're my brother, for God's sake. Aren't you supposed to be watching my back? Rubbing his nose, Feng Sun eyed Feng Wu in suspicion. But since when do you care what other people think of you? It's so not like you. Feng Wu replied, whatever. I'm not going. He's pretty much recovered anyway. All he needs is to have his bandages changed. Anyone can do it. There, it's your job now. After that, Feng Wu handed the medical kit to Feng Sun. Are you talking about changing His Royal Highness's bandages? An arrogant voice rang out behind them. Feng Wu turned around and saw that it was Mu Yaoyao. When did she get here? Mu Yaoyao didn't seem to realize that she wasn't welcome here. She went up to Feng Wu in a hurry and snatched the medical kit out of the latter's hands. She then glared at Feng Wu. You're such a heartless woman. Feng Wu stared at her in bewilderment. Mu Yaoyao threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. You were asked to change His Royal Highness's bandages. How can you say no to that? Feng Wu was speechless. Do we have to get down our knees to beg you, and you'll only say yes after refusing us repeatedly? You want to look so restrained, don't you? Mu Yaoyao snorted. Do you think things will go as you plan? Feng Wu was speechless. It's just changing bandages. Anyone can do it. Think. Mu Yaoyao stormed off with the medical kit. Feng Wu and Feng Sun exchanged looks. Clearly, Mu Yaoyao didn't care what other people had to say about the matter. Feng Sun asked, can she do it? Feng Wu rubbed her nose and didn't say anything. She hadn't told Mu Yaoyao about the secret lock on the kit. She wouldn't be able to open it anyway. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps came from outside. She's here. Elated, Xianyi went to answer the door. However, he was baffled when he saw the person outside. It wasn't Feng Wu but Mu Yaoyao. Cousin, Mu Yaoyao gave Xianyi her sweetest smile. Narrowing his eyes, Xianyi blocked the door. He then stared at Mu Yaoyao. What are you doing here? Mu Yaoyao held up the medical kit. I'm here to change His Royal Highness's bandages. Xianyi frowned. Why you? Since she was his cousin, Xianyi thought he should caution her in advance. However, Mu Yaoyao shoved him to the side and rushed into the room. She would be able to see His Royal Highness's half-naked body. Of course she wouldn't miss the chance. Hence Mu Yaoyao pushed Xianyi out of her way as soon as she saw that he was going to stop her. Mu. That was the only word Xianyi had time to say before Mu Yaoyao reached Jun Linyuan. With a book in his hand, Jun Linyuan had posed himself just so in order to look nonchalant when Feng Wu arrived. Your Royal Highness, I'm here to change your bandages. Setting the kit on the table, Mu Yaoyao crouched down next to Jun Linyuan and gave him an affectionate smile. Instantly. Chapter 910. Chapter 910. It all started with Feng Wu, didn't it? Expecting to see Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan had been assuming airs with a book in his hand. His face turned livid when he heard the voice. Looking up, he saw that it indeed wasn't Feng Wu. The look he gave Mu Yaoyao was murderous. It was such a frightening glare that Mu Yaoyao's stomach lurched. Her heart pounded so hard that her chest was about to burst open. Instinctively, Mu Yaoyao wanted to flee. However, this was such a rare chance that she might never get it again. At that thought, Mu Yaoyao fought back her fear and reached out to take the medical kit in her hands. Her voice trembled uncontrollably when she spoke again. Why, your Royal Highness, Mu Yaoyao swallowed. I'm here to change your bandages. However, she couldn't open the kit no matter what. The kit belonged to Feng Wu, who was used to keeping a lot of secrets. She had designed a secret lock for the kit so that she was the only one who could open it. Despite the great pressure, Mu Yaoyao tried to open the box. However, she was so flustered that her fingers kept slipping, and it seemed impossible to get that box open. Sweat rolled down her forehead. Get out! Jun Lingyuan's face was livid and his eyes spat fire. His voice rang out like a thunderclap over Mu Yaoyao's head. She was scared stiff and almost stopped breathing. Jun Linyuan reminded her of a cornered beast who would tear her to pieces in the next moment. He was so scary. Mu Yaoyao thought that she was going to have a heart attack. She almost fainted and burst into tears. Without thinking, she turned around and ran. Thud, thud, thud. She bumped into various things on her way out, and she tripped and fell. However, she only scrambled to her feet and kept running, as if she was being chased by a ferocious beast. Run, run, run. Outside, Feng Sun and Xianyi exchanged looks. They knew Boss Jun didn't like Mu Yaoyao, but they didn't expect him to be so unfriendly. Patting his chest, Feng Sun whispered to Xianyi, I'm so glad little Feng Wu didn't come. Otherwise, she would be the one who was scared off. Xianyi shot a dirty look at Feng Sun and mumbled, this would never have happened if she were here. What was that? Feng Sun didn't hear it. Xianyi was about to explain, when Jun Lingyuan's angry voice came from inside. Get your asses in here. Exchanging looks, Xianyi and Feng Sun entered the cabin with their heads lowered. Feng Sun walked in to find the medical kit on the floor. He rushed over to pick it up. That Mu Yaoyao is unbelievable. This isn't the right way to treat other people's belongings. What did she do to little Feng Wu's medical kit? Jun Lingyuan's face darkened when he heard Feng Sun's words. Teehee. Seeing the look on Boss Jun's face, Feng Sun explained in a hurry, I was afraid that us guys wouldn't be careful enough with changing your bandages, and Mu Yaoyao just happened to volunteer. She took the medical kit before we could stop her, and we just let her have her way. But ahem, we forgot that you don't like girls near you. Feng Sun smacked his own forehead. That was right. Boss Jun had always resisted having girls around him, and that used to be rule number 1. But when did they begin to forget that? Feng Sun searched his memory. It all started with little Feng Wu, didn't it? Chapter 9:11. Chapter 9:11. Boss Jun is in love with Feng Wu. Feng Sun decided that he would change Boss Jun's bandages, for the guy didn't like to have girls around. However, when he wanted to open the medical kit, he realized in surprise that he couldn't. Just then there was a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. Who is it? Feng Sun went to answer the door and saw that it was Feng Wu. Feng Sun panicked a little and tried to shove Feng Wu out of the cabin. Not now. You have to leave. Feng Wu was at a loss. Boss Jun is mad again and Mu Ya ran away in tears. You can't be here. Feng Sun prompted Feng Wu. That explained it, thought Feng Wu. She had seen Mu Yaoyao running off in tears and looking ghastly pale. However, I forgot to tell you. There's a secret lock on the medical kit, and I'm the only one who can open it. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. Wait here. Feng Sun rushed back in, fetched the medical kit, and stuffed it into Feng Wu's hands. Open it here. There's no need for you to go in. However, before Feng Sun could say another word, he was pulled away. When he realized it, Xianyi had pushed Feng Wu into the room with one hand and yanked Feng Sun out of the door. He then slammed the door behind them. Feng Sun was speechless. So was Feng Wu. Xianyi. Feng Sun was furious when he realized what had happened. He grabbed Xianyi by the collar. Have you lost your mind? Didn't you see what Mu Yaoyao went through? Shutting little Feng Wu in with Boss Jun will get her killed. Angrily shoving Xianyi away, Feng Sun ran toward the door as he tried to get back in. However, Xianyi dragged him away, walking as fast as he could. It just so happened that Xianyi was a better cultivator than Feng Sun, and the latter wasn't able to break free. Xianyi, let go of me. What sort of friend are you? Feng Sun was furious. By then Xianyi had pulled him behind a pile of snow. Thump! He then pushed Feng Sun into the pile, kicking up snow everywhere. Feng Sun spat the snow out of his mouth as he shouted, "You're going to get Xiao Wu killed. And you call yourself a friend? That's not something a friend should do." Glaring at Xianyi, Feng Sun raised a fist. But Xianyi spoke first. "You just can't see it, can you?" "See what?" Feng Sun's hand was still raised when he stared at Xianyi in bewilderment. "Boss Jun is in love with little Feng Wu. Can't you tell?" Xianyi asked in frustration. Feng Sun was dazed for a moment before he guffawed. He pointed at Xianyi as he laughed. "You're out of your mind. Boss Jun is in love with little Feng Wu? Ha 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 ha. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard." As Feng Sun guffawed, Xianyi stood there with a sword between his crossed arms and a solemn look on his face. Feng Sun stopped laughing. "It wasn't a joke. Do I look like I'm joking? That's impossible." Feng Sun wouldn't believe it. Xianyi smirked. "Has Boss Jun ever been so close with a girl before he met little Feng Wu?" Feng Sun said, "Of course not. But we stayed in Feng Wu's house when we were in northern border city." Feng Sun retorted, "That was because it was Feng Iran's house." Xianyi smiled at Feng Sun. Feng Sun wouldn't give in. It couldn't have been because of little Feng Wu. Chapter 9:12. Chapter 9:12. No, no, no. Xianyi stared into his eyes. "Then on our way back, Boss Jun permitted her to stay with us. Has he ever done that with any other girl?" Feng Sun protested that was because Feng Wu has a family to take care of, and she has no cultivation ability. Boss Jun pitted. Xianyi crossed his arms. "I see. So you're saying that Boss Jun would ignore his beliefs because he pitted some weaklings." "That wasn't what Jun Linyuan would do." Feng Sun said, "I remember now. Boss Jun didn't offer to take Xiao Wu with us on our way back. Xiao Wu wanted to join us herself. Remember that?" Feng Sun got excited. "Xiao Wu followed us herself." "Yes, that was it. Plus you saw it yourself in Wanping town. Little Feng Wu snuck into Boss Jun's room in the middle of the night." Xianyi gave Feng Sun a half smile. "It could have been a misunderstanding, but let's just say that what you said really happened. What do you think would have happened if that girl hadn't been Feng Wu?" Xianyi grinned. "It's not like we haven't seen before how Jun Linyuan treats girls. Gong Sun Qing is one of the latest examples, and she's still bedridden. And there's Mu Yaoyao. She's probably still crying now. The consequences of climbing into his bed would only be more severe. But was little Feng Wu injured?" Feng Sun shook his head. "Did she cry?" Feng Sun shook his head after some thought. Xianyi shrugged. "There you go." Feng Sun shook his head. "I don't buy it. How can Boss Jun be in love with little Feng Wu? That's impossible." Xianyi sneered at him. "You've been beaten up twice for nothing." "Beaten up?" Feng Sun immediately recalled the 2 duels Boss Jun had dragged him into. Xianyi smiled. "Why did Boss Jun want to challenge you? Think." Feng Sun might not be convinced by other things, but the beatings he had taken were simply too unreasonable and unforgettable. Feng Sun began to search his memory. The first one happened after the banquet at Yin Manor. Boss Jun and little Feng Wu were getting into the same carriage and Feng Sun had tried to stop little Feng Wu, fearing that she might get hurt. Then, Feng Sun was confused. But how does little Feng Wu have anything to do with the second time? Xianyi rubbed his nose. Well, the second time was actually his doing and Feng Sun was the scapegoat. He had wanted to keep it secret, but Feng Sun would never be able to figure it out himself. With no other choice, Xianyi had to tell Feng Sun everything. "What?" Feng Sun almost jumped to his feet. How could you trick Boss Jun like that? Little Feng Wu could have been beaten up by Boss Jun. But was she? Xianyi smiled. Feng Sun stopped abruptly. Little Feng Wu ran off that night, and did you see the look on Boss Jun's face the next morning? You asked him what happened and Boss Jun actually grinned. Xianyi glanced at Feng Sun. Feng Sun was speechless. He didn't want to believe it. He really didn't. However, when Xianyi laid out the evidence piece by piece, Feng Sun felt as if he had been struck by lightning. I don't believe it, I don't. Despite what he said, Feng Sun was already half convinced. Chapter 913. Chapter 913. A threat from His Royal Highness. Xianyi cut to the chase. If you're still not convinced, let's talk about the facts. What facts? Feng Sun had a bitter taste in his mouth and he felt awful. If what Xianyi said was true, Feng Sun was petrified when he recalled what he had done so far. He had been more of a hindrance than a help. Feng Sun looked embarrassed when he recalled telling Boss Jun that since little Feng Wu was his sister, she was as good as a half-sister to the crown prince. Glancing at Feng Sun, Xianyi saw that the guy was still in shock, so he patted him on the shoulder. Feng Sun asked, "What?" Xianyi said, "It's going to be a really easy test." Muya ran away in tears when she tried to change Boss Jun's bandages. We'll see how he treats little Feng Wu. That'll answer our questions. Feng Sun nodded. That was a good idea. A voice kept telling Feng Sun in his head that Xianyi was talking nonsense and that Boss Jun couldn't be in love with little Feng Wu. The two teenagers hid behind a pile of snow outside Jun Linyuan's cabin, and all four eyes were fixed on the closed door. Behind that closed door, the medical kit that had given Feng Sun and Mu Yaoyao a hard time popped open under Feng Wu's fingers with a click. The last thing Feng Wu wanted was to stay in a room alone with Jun Linyuan. That was because Feng Xiaowu of Northern Border City had come up in their conversation the last time they were alone. Jun Linyuan's eyes had been frighteningly bright, and for a split second, Feng Wu thought that he had found out the truth. That was why Feng Wu felt so uneasy around the guy now. Hence, setting the medical kit down on the table, Feng Wu said, "Feng Sun will change your bandages after he gets back." As for her, she would stay as far away from this guy as possible. However, she barely made it 3 steps when a cold voice rang out behind her. "Leave this room. I dare you." Feng Wu jumped at those words and stood still right away. That was a blatant threat. Biting her lip, Feng Wu wrinkled her nose. What should she do now? She didn't dare meet Jun Linyuan's eyes. It was as if he could see through everything. Feng Wu fidgeted. "Come over here." The crown prince grunted. Feng Wu wanted to flee, but was stopped by what Jun Linyuan said next. "I see that you don't want that broken star piece anymore." Feng Wu's stomach lurched. Spinning around, she glared at Jun Linyuan. "What do you want to do to my broken star piece? You made a promise. You're going to give it to me when I get into Imperial College as the top candidate. So you do remember that?" Jun Linyuan snorted. There was a taunting look in his eyes. Feng Wu smacked her head. So much had happened lately that she had forgotten about Jun Linyuan's terms. What was more, not only had she made a bet with Jun Linyuan, but with Mu Yaoyao and Yi Yafei as well. If she didn't get the top spot, apart from losing the broken star piece, she would lose her head to Mu Yaoyao too. Feng Wu gritted her teeth. "You don't have to worry about that, Your Royal Highness. I'll take care of it myself." Jun Linyuan smiled a little. Now that the Frosty Night Beast is out, all the other magical beasts have scattered. Feng Wu knew what that meant. The rankings of the candidates were pretty much fixed. That was because no other magical beasts would show up anymore, and it was coming to the end of the physical tryout. Chapter 914. Chapter 914. I don't buy it. That Frosty Night Beast had become her only source of spiritual essence, but Feng Wu would be finished off in one blow if she tried to face it on her own. That was to say, if she still wanted to be first, Jun Linyuan was her only hope. Feng Wu looked even more frustrated after figuring that out. Jun Linyuan stared at her the whole time. His eyes were bright but brooding. He was doing everything above board. And that was why Feng Wu couldn't say no to the offer. Feng Wu was a smart girl who took note of the situation. Jun Linyuan believed that she wouldn't choose otherwise. Leaning against the headboard, Jun Linyuan smiled at Feng Wu with a confident look in his eyes. Teehee. Feng Wu forced herself to beam at him. To give in or not, that was the question. and Feng Wu gave in without hesitation. She had done it too many times to give a damn anyway. Feng Wu asked, "Your Royal Highness, how are you feeling? Shall I change your bandages for you?" Jun Linyuan snorted. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" Feng Wu went up to him in a hurry and tugged his sleeve. "Your Royal Highness, you flatter me. It would be my honor to change your bandages. I'm at your service." Feng Wu batted her eyelashes and winked. It could take anyone's breath away. However, she was dealing with Jun Linyuan. Although, even the worldly crown prince almost came under her spell. He looked away uneasily. Feng Wu said, "Please allow me to undress you." "That's done. I'm going to change your bandages now." "Sorry I touched your wound. Does it hurt? Shall I blow on it?" Jun Linyuan was speechless. He had dealt with Feng Wu too many times to fall for her tricks. The girl was all about an equivalent exchange. She would fold at the slightest threat if she thought it worthwhile. She finished wrapping Jun Linyuan up again in no time. After putting everything away, Feng Wu wanted to leave. But the crown prince would never cut her loose that easily. Moreover, Feng Wu wasn't Jun Linyuan's match when it came to playing tricks. Hence, she had to stay behind and serve him as told. Outside, Xianyi glanced at Feng Sun. "It's been an hour." Mu Yaoyao had been in the cabin for less than a minute before the crown prince yelled at her, and she fled the scene in tears. But Feng Wu had been inside for an hour already. What did that mean? It was so obvious. But Feng Sun still wouldn't let go of his last hope. Maybe Boss Jun is asleep. Xianyi rolled his eyes at Feng Sun. Feng Sun cried out, "I mean it. It's possible, right?" Xianyi grabbed Feng Sun's wrist. What are you doing?" Xianyi dragged Feng Sun toward the cabin. Xianyi said, "To answer your question." He gave Feng Sun a teasing look. "We're going to put your theory to the test." Feng Sun said, "All right. Possibility number 1. Boss Jun isn't in love with Feng Wu, which is your belief. And little Feng Wu was able to stay inside for this long because Boss Jun fell asleep." Feng Sun nodded. Xianyi said, "If that's the case, Boss Jun won't be mad with us if we go in now." Feng Sun nodded. "That's right." Xianyi had made up his mind that he would make Feng Sun see the light today. Otherwise, the goofball would be killed by Boss Jun one day. Xianyi said, "All right, here's possibility number 2. Boss Jun is in love with little Feng Wu." Chapter 9:15. Chapter 9:15. What's wrong with Feng Sun? He deliberately made little Feng Wu stay behind for some quiet time alone. "What do you think will happen if we intrude on them now?" Feng Sun said. "He'll be furious." Xianyi nodded. The next moment he pushed Feng Sun toward the door and there was a loud bang. The door wasn't locked, so Feng Sun was shoved into the cabin. Feng Wu was wiping Jun Linyuan's hands at the moment. According to the crown prince, he would get peevish when his hands were dirty, and when he was peevish he didn't feel like talking. When he didn't feel like talking, all in all, he would end up not wanting to share the Frosty Night Beast's spiritual essence with Feng Wu, and she would end up getting a 0 in the exam. Would Feng Wu be threatened by that? She actually would. Therefore, she prepared some warm water and a white towel, and right now, she was sitting on a rush cushion as she wiped the crown prince's already pristine fingers one at a time. Feng Sun barged in at that moment. And he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Wiping hands. Jun Linyuan the neat freak would cut a person's hand off if they dared to touch him. But now, he was having little Feng Wu clean his hands. Blood rushed into Feng Sun's head and his mind went blank. He stood there dazed, as if he had just been struck by lightning. Without Feng Wu realizing it, Jun Linyuan's face darkened. He turned his sharp gaze on Feng Sun. Feng Sun's stomach lurched. Boss Jun was pissed. But since Feng Sun was here to test his theory, he might as well try everything. Like usual, Feng Sun rushed over to Feng Wu's side and began to push her toward the door. "What are you doing here, you silly girl? Are you waiting for Boss Jun to throw you out?" That had always been Feng Sun's strategy. He would get Feng Wu out of Boss Jun's sight whenever he saw them together. However, this time, Feng Sun was looking at Boss Jun out of the corner of his eye when he did so. And his heart sank. That was because Boss Jun's face had turned livid and he looked like he wanted to kill Feng Sun. Feng Sun was dumbfounded. Everything was clear. He saw it now finally. Sensing Feng Sun's uneasiness, Feng Wu looked up. Feng Sun, are you not feeling well? She put her palm on Feng Sun's smooth forehead to check his temperature, but couldn't feel anything unusual. She then stood on tiptoe and touched Feng Sun's forehead with her own. Thump! A bedside table next to Jun Linyuan shattered into pieces, and something clicked in Feng Sun's head as well. Involuntarily, he pushed Feng Wu away from him. He used a little too much force in his panic state, and it was only because of Xianyi that Feng Wu didn't knock into the wall. Instead of minding her own well-being, Feng Wu went up to Feng Sun in a hurry and took his hand. Feng Sun, what's wrong? Why are you sweating so badly? Are you not feeling well? Here, let me check your. However, Feng Sun drew back his hand abruptly before Feng Wu could finish her sentence. Feng Wu stared at him in bewilderment. Had the man lost his mind? Before Feng Wu could ask another question, Feng Sun ran for the door. Hey! Feng Wu was so confused. What was going on? Xianyi smiled wryly. I'll look after him. Feng Wu said, it's going to snow. Find him. He doesn't seem right to me. Xianyi shook his head. The news was too big for Feng Sun to digest. Of course he didn't seem right. Little Feng Wu was probably the last person Feng Sun wanted to face right now. Xianyi gave Feng Wu a solemn nod, then rushed out. What's wrong with Feng Sun? Chapter 9:16. Chapter 9:16. Feng Sun, what's wrong with you? Feng Wu stared at Jun Linyuan in bewilderment. Meanwhile, Jun Linyuan tossed the warm towel into Feng Wu's lap. Wipe your hands. Feng Wu said, but they're clean. Jumping off the bed, Jun Linyuan marched toward Feng Wu. He then began to carelessly wipe her face. Meanwhile, Feng Sun. Feng Sun, Feng Sun. Xianyi finally caught up with Feng Sun, who was standing in front of a cliff. Xianyi smiled wryly. I see you've figured it out. Feng Sun clenched his fists so hard that blue veins popped on the back of his hands. When did you find out? Feng Sun stared at Xianyi. Not long, less than a month ago. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't. Xianyi looked perfectly innocent. I tried more than a few times. Think about it. Feng Sun was speechless. His head was a mess and he couldn't think straight. But he began to recall what Xianyi told him. Xianyi really had reminded him more than once, but he only laughed at his friend in turn, saying that the guy was imagining things. As it turned out, Feng Sun realized that he couldn't have been more wrong. May I ask, how do you feel right now? Xianyi was still teasing Feng Sun. How did he feel? Feng Sun scratched his head. He felt conflicted. He was shocked, angry, regretful, sad, conflicted, and ashamed. It was so overwhelming that Feng Sun couldn't think straight. Xianyi, I'm gonna kill you. Ah! Before Xianyi could react, Feng Sun charged at him and threw a punch at Xianyi. Xianyi knew that Feng Sun needed to vent his frustration now, or the guy would explode. Bring it on. Xianyi calmly accepted the challenge. The wind that was kicked up blew snow off the ground, and blades glinted in the sunlight. The fight was so unexpected that everyone in the campsite was bewildered and flustered. Mu Yaoyao was still crying her eyes out when everyone rushed out. Young Lord Feng and young Lord Xian are fighting. Oh God, why? It's for real. Young Lord Feng just got kicked away. And he's back on his feet. Oh. Everyone had heard the noise, and Feng Wu was no exception. She rushed out of the cabin. Stop! Seeing how fiercely the two of them were fighting, Feng Wu cried out. By then, Xianyi and Feng Sun were pretty much done, and Feng Sun had bruises all over his face. Naturally, Feng Wu ran toward Feng Sun first. Feng! Feng Sun took a step back as soon as Feng Wu opened her mouth. Feng Sun, what's wrong? Feng Wu took Feng Sun's hand, but he threw it off immediately. Feng Wu frowned. But before she could say another word, Feng Sun cast a stern look at Feng Wu. Don't talk to me. After that, he walked away as quickly as he could, as if he was being chased by some monster. That surprised the crowd. What's going on? Doesn't young Lord Feng care for Feng Wu a lot? That's right. He once said that Feng Wu was his friend, and that picking on Feng Wu would be the same as picking on him. But did you see the look he gave Feng Wu? It was as if he saw a ghost. Mu Yao was ecstatic to hear that. Chapter 9:17. Chapter 9:17. Oh no. That is to say, young Lord Feng hates Feng Wu now. Mu Yao cried out. Many in the crowd thought the same. Young Lord Feng hates Feng Wu? What did Feng Wu do to deserve that? Can't you tell? Yaoing Mu Yao's minions snorted. You've all seen how frivolous Feng Wu is. She was all over His Royal Highness in the beginning, and when that didn't work out, she moved on to Yuminji. I saw her going to His Royal Highness again just then. Of course young Lord Feng would be mad. How can Feng Wu do that? Young Lord Feng has every right to be mad. Mu Yao smirked. She used to have Feng Sun to back her up, but now, both His Royal Highness and Yuminji have stopped talking to her. I'd like to see who she can turn to now that she's lost young Lord Feng's support. In the outside world, Zhuo Ming, the head of the Zhuo clan, had requested to try and reconnect Imperial College with Proud Snowfield. What was more, the Zhuo clan had a plan of their own. The news already spread before Zhuo Ming came to court. Your Majesty, Master Bai whispered in Emperor Wu's ear, the families of the candidates are petitioning outside. They're all kneeling outside the city gates, begging for Master Zhuo to try his method. Emperor Wu's face turned livid. Your Majesty. The Empress Dowager stared at Emperor Wu. The Crown Prince is still trapped inside. Aren't you worried about his safety? She also wanted Zhuo Ming to have a go. Your Majesty. Empress Dugu was on their side as well. Emperor Wu suddenly recalled the day Feng Wu killed Zhuo He. After killing Zhuo He, the girl said decisively that the Zhuo family was responsible for destroying her true phoenix blood back then. Emperor Wu wasn't fully convinced then, but now when he saw how aggressive the family was, plus the fact that even his wife was on their side. Feng, what do you think? Emperor Wu tossed the ball to Grand Secretary Feng. Grand Secretary Feng said with a straight face, I have faith in Your Majesty and His Royal Highness. Emperor Wu nodded. He then turned to the Empress Dowager. Mother, do you have faith in the Crown Prince? The Empress Dowager gritted her teeth. Of course she had faith in the boy. Her baby June was the best. He was a genius and he was invincible. She was so worried about him, but... Does Your Majesty think it's unnecessary to try? Emperor Wu nodded. I believe in my son. The Empress Dowager grunted. I do too, but I'm still worried about his safety. Will the Crown Prince be affected by the process of reconnecting Imperial College to Proud Snowfield? No, he won't. If that's the case, why don't we let Zhuo try? The Empress Dowager snorted. Imperial College is supposed to be led by the most capable man. If Grand Secretary Feng isn't the right person, we should find a more suitable man. Emperor Wu frowned. The Empress Dowager then led him to one side. He's Zhuo Qinghuan's father. Emperor Wu looked at his mother in bewilderment. He's the Crown Prince's future father-in-law. Emperor Wu narrowed his eyes. The Crown Prince doesn't have to. His mother snorted. Only a true phoenix like Zhuo Qinghuan is good enough for the Crown Prince. No one but her will have my blessing. Emperor Wu didn't know what to say. I shouldn't meddle in politics, but I will have my say on his marriage. The Empress Dowager smacked the table. Emperor Wu found her troublesome. Zhuo Qinghuan can wait. I guess it won't harm anyone to let Zhuo Ming try his method. Chapter 9:18. Chapter 9:18 Imminent Danger. In the end, Emperor Wu decided that Zhuo Ming should try his method. Countless people gathered in the square outside Imperial College and waited for Zhuo Ming to work his magic. In Proud Snowfield, Feng Wu watched in bewilderment as Feng Sun walked away. Confused, she turned to Xianyi. What's his problem? Of course she was confused. Feng Sun used to act like a hyperactive puppy around her. But he looked like he had been scared off by a ghost. He had practically run away. Xianyi rubbed his chin. I think he's having a hard time facing you. Facing me? Feng Wu was even more confused. What did he do? Why is facing me that scary? Xianyi rubbed his nose. Well. Just then. Buzz. Everyone heard a buzzing sound, which they had heard once before. Shit. Everyone blanched. Xianyi involuntarily reached out for Feng Wu. And he did the right thing. A green tentacle was also trying to get to Feng Wu. If Xianyi hadn't dragged her out of the way in time, she would have been snatched again. Frosty Night Beast. Feng Wu cried out. The next second. Rumble. The beast burst out of the snowy ground. Roar. With one growl, it blew away half of the candidates in the campsite. And it blew away the other half with a second growl. It then turned around and glared at Feng Wu. There was a frenzied, furious look in its eyes. Feng Wu then spotted a sword stuck in the Frosty Night Beast's chest. It was Jun Lingyuan's Sky Destroyer. That was why she hadn't seen Jun Lingyuan's sword earlier. It had pierced the beast's heart. But why wasn't the beast dead? Feng Wu realized that compared with the last time she saw it, the beast was now more powerful. Just as the Frosty Night Beast smashed its front paw down at Feng Wu's head, a tall figure landed from above and stood in front of Feng Wu. Feng Wu cried out, "It's mutated. It's enhanced itself." That was to say, the beast had become even stronger. No wonder Sky Destroyer hadn't killed it. The beast was able to block the strike. Jun Linyuan gave off an intimidating air as he stood there. He seemed untouchable. The Frosty Night Beast made an eerie, triumphant sound. The next second, it leapt into the air. Jun Linyuan pushed Feng Wu away, but he remained where he was. He dropped to avoid the beast when it was almost onto him, and the next second Sky Destroyer was back in his hand. Whoosh! As soon as the blade was drawn out, blood spurted out of the wound. It splashed everywhere and painted the ground red. The beast roared and charged at Jun Linyuan, and they both jumped into the air. Run! Feng Wu knew what was coming, and she warned the others, the fight will start an avalanche. Run or you'll be killed. The candidates were already scared. They had seen what an avalanche could do. They scattered as soon as they heard what Feng Wu said, and were soon out of sight. Mu Yaoyao wanted to stay, but Yaoing warned her, "You'll be in danger if you stay here. Do you think His Royal Highness will save you?" Reality check. Mu Yaoyao felt as if she had been stabbed through the heart. But Feng Wu. Can't you tell by now? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.